change. everybody, I'm not going to lie. That was shocking to see the screen come on because I was in my own headspace there. But you know what? We made it. It is another episode of Thirsty Thursday. Drinks up, gentlemen. I hope everybody's doing good. Interestingly, I've not had an adult beverage since the GIE, but that's okay. And I'm actually probably don't have time for a drink tonight either because I got to be up early. And, we're going to be going hard in the paint till pretty late tonight. So cheers to everybody. Of course.
Cheers.
Along with me,
Cheers.
I've got my two special sidearms right here. Not the Kyle Rittenhouse kind. We've got the real deal men themselves. God, that's the second time I've dropped that. Is it? I know it's my bad. A little controversial.
Yeah.
It's a little. Is that Chappelle controversial or is that just? I'm not allowed to talk about any of this, to be honest. We've got Ray and Ryan, gentlemen. How the hell are y'all doing tonight?
Well, hey, it's a great evening. It's a great day too. You know why, Matt? Today we're celebrating my favorite team, right? The American Armed Forces and all the teammates, right? The only two-time back-to-back World War champs, United States Armed Forces. Happy Veterans Day to all of our veterans and friends. My brother, who's in the Army, our distinguished friend, Mr. Robert Palmer, who's also in the United States Army, and our guest tonight, who
our
informed
guest of
us
honor.
that he also served, right? He served this country. So, gentlemen, ladies, anybody who's a veteran that's watching or listening or tolerating this next to their spouse who might be, thank you. Thank you so much.
Let freedom ring. Ray, give us a little hot sauce. How are you, sir?
Well, I'm doing good. This morning, I actually kind of cured my Waffle House withdrawal.
Oh, you made some biscuits, did you?
Well, actually, I did an epic biscuits and gravy. Epic.
That sounds actually phenomenal. I have been on carb restriction still since you were here, and I'm not gonna lie, I miss eating whatever I wanted to eat, like real bad.
Well, you know what, Matt? I eat whatever the hell I want to eat any day of the week, vacation or no vacation.
I blame it on my thyroid. Is going to be my new excuse. I'm going to be like, yeah, my T3, T4 levels are off. Gentlemen, we have an extra special guest tonight. We have the one, the only. Listen, we've got the OG Fergie. We've got the Fergie before Fergie was in here. And you're damn right. So, what is it? Scandalous. Isn't that what she says in her song? So scandalous.
You're really plugged into the top 40 music of the day there, Matthew.
I can't remember either. That was like circa 2005. That was 16 years ago, and I'm just not there mentally anymore. I had to replace my thought process with bad words because what is it they say that people use significant amounts of bad words have small brains or low IQs or something? Well, I'm the poster boy because whatever intellect I had dissolved somewhere between 2005 and 2008. That is for sure. Thanks, University of Tennessee. Gentlemen, we have Steve Ferguson. Sir, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, guys. As I mentioned earlier, it's truly an honor to be in the midst of you fine gentlemen on such an awesome Veterans Day. Man, what a day to be on, man. It is awesome. Team America, back to back. Man, you got me pumped over here. That's what I'm talking about.
Hey,
who's next?
Yeah, who wants it?
Who's next?
You hear that, Xi Jinping? Huh? You hear that? All right, good.
And the Kyle Rittenhouse joke was too soon, right? Are we?
No, I'm too far ahead. You're too soon. I'm too far ahead. Yeah, I'm fast forwarding in history. Anyhow, all right. So listen. We became of your YouTube channel and viewed some content, and we thought, you know what, we gotta have this guy on just to talk to him and level with him and see what's going on, what his challenges are. North Carolina is not a very friendly place to grow tall fescue, as you, I think, have learned, right? And So, not necessarily, saying that you're doing a bad job, but just, hey, wanted to learn more about you, hear about your journey, how you got into it, and take it from there. So tell us from your humble beginnings as a servant to this country till you're sitting here right now. How did you get here right now? How did your lawn journey take you here?
Yeah, well, again, appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to tell my hopefully short story here. But wow, as I was telling Matt earlier, IT, being in the IT type field, I get tired of being behind monitors. From the military, I was looking for a civilian job. What am I going to do after the military? And after praying, saying, God, where do you want me to be? He placed me in a city municipality where I'm stuck kind of behind a screen all the time. Um, and as I mentioned, growing up, my dad he managed a local company here in Wake County, North Carolina, and so we had a decent amount of property. I believe in the where we grew up, we had about 6 acres. He kept about 4 acres of that. He would just throw out the Kentucky 31. He'd mow it. So of course, I was the laborer to dad. I was still too young. I didn't want to handle the weed eater. It jacked my hands up, and I was a wimp about it. So I would do the cutting. If I could get the whatever Sears lawnmower he bought, we would cut, all of that. So that was my whole Saturday. And then later on in life, my dad became a pastor. So guess what? I got to go and cut the grass for the church parking lot area as well. So that was my whole weekend, man. So I ran away to the military for 12 years, came back. But yeah, was stuck, in my daily job working for the city. I'm stuck behind these monitors all the time. And out, 3 years or so ago, walked out, here at my own home and was like, you know what? I wonder if I could grow a decent looking lawn. Because you see them driving down the street, you see these nice looking homes and grass. And I've always been a lover of grass. Even when I was overseas in Iraq, we had one unit. I don't know where they were from, but they had a patch of beautiful. I guess now it had to have been warm season grass because it was in Iraq, like North Baghdad. So it had to be warm season. I take it. I don't know, but it was just beautiful green grass in Iraq, and it was somebody was watering it every day, and I was like, dude, that is awesome. And because in Iraq it's so dry and desolate and just dusty. Seeing that on post was awesome. It was like, dude, that is awesome. So I never forgot that. And then, coming back and working behind a monitor all the time, doing IT type work, not in IT. We made that point earlier. I like being outside now. I like getting away from the blue screen and said, I wonder if I can do this. And so I had the idea of like, okay, well, I should probably document it. Where do I start? I don't know. So I started by, just going online. And I am a product of YouTube in this day and age we live where everything is, on YouTube and you can learn everything and begin to find out, okay, I need to measure my lawn. Literally the day I was like, okay, I need to find out how much square footage I have. I walked outside to do exactly that. And no joke, God is my witness. True Green pulls up in my driveway to sell me their product. And the guy walks off my lawn and does it for me. And I'm like, okay, Lord, I hear you. So that was pretty cool that I didn't even have to do it myself. He did it for me. And it was literally at that moment that I had to make a decision because he, me and my wife's out there and he's pitching it just the greatest he can. And I'm literally coming outside to say, do I want to do this or now do I want to have this guy do it? And I said, no, if I'm going to have a nice looking yard, I want to do it myself and be able to say that I did it and be proud of it and say I created this, and did my best to make it look awesome. And when people come by and say, dude, that yard looks awesome, I don't have to say, yeah, I paid True Green to do it, man, $300 or whatever, I don't like that. Some guy, what I think I said in one of my early first videos was, I don't want some guy with his magical liquids pulling up, spraying it, and it's like, hey, whatever that is, fill me up, brother. And it's like whatever makes it look good. I wanted to kind of learn and do it myself. And so I told him no. I told him I'm good. I think I'm going to do it myself. And my yard was filled with Poa annua. I mean, it was filled with Poa annua. And he's like, well, you got this thing called Poa annua, and it's very tough, and we could take care of it, but all right, man, good luck. And he left, and he called me like 7 times trying to get me to, obviously to hire them, but I never did. And so that kind of launched me into, okay, what is Poa annua? What is this cool season weed? And how do I get rid of it? Like, well, how do I battle this thing? And I was like, well, I probably need to document it. So I just began to take my camera phone, my iPhone, and film like, okay, here's what I'm doing here. And I did not ever intend on having a YouTube channel with, whatever it's at, 1.4 thousand people. I'm like, holy crap, like people care. And so I don't take the approach, I listen to something like you guys way more knowledgeable about, lawn care stuff than myself. I take the approach as a normal guy who just is like, okay, I want to have a decent looking lawn for my kids, for, the neighborhood, and impress people, and have that, yeah, I did that factor. And I'm just documenting it along the way and learning as I go. But as I said, I am a product of learning from YouTube. And people are like, you did all that through YouTube? I'm like, yep, learning from these guys that know better than me. And here we are. So that's kind of how I got into it. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's uncommon. Go ahead.
I learned how to weld on YouTube. No lie. Like that was it was a journey I went down that I wanted to learn how to weld. And I wanted to impress my dad, to be honest, because he was the one who first showed me welding. I remember going to at the time it was Dover Elevator, and they had a big fab shop behind his building, and I got to run a MIG welder and a stick welder for the first time, and I kind of let it go. And he was always pushing me that one day I should learn it. And in the age of YouTube, many moons ago, I became hyper obsessed and bought a welder. And I said, I'm not gonna stop until I figure out how to run a damn bead that I don't have to grind off 6 times to make it look decent. So no, I get it, man. I love it. I love it.
Yep. Yep. It's been fun to, and I think somebody said it earlier, maybe before we actually started, but failing, like when you fail, you learn. And that's what, we'll probably get into it a little bit more when, I'll pick y'all's brains on what you think things are. But yeah, it's like the first time you see, like when so I don't know, I've made a video on this, and when it hit me, the bug bit me, the lawn care bug bit me, it was spring. And here in North Carolina, I wanted to have a cool season lawn because that's what my dad had, and that's kind of what I sort of grew up around, and that's what I wanted to have. But when the lawn care bug bit me, it was in the spring, and then I get online, they're like, yeah, you want to plant your fescue in the fall, and I'm like, oh great, so I got to wait all the way until the fall to do it. And so I did my best to maintain what I had, and yeah, man. And so when you first see that lawn, just that baby grass come up and watch the growth, and you're like, it is so worth it to anybody that and not to diss anybody that's paying a company. Please don't get me wrong, but when you do it yourself and you're like, dude, I made that happen. That is one of the most satisfying feelings. And we've recently made videos about my neighbors who they've seen what I've done and thought I was crazy at first, and now they're doing it, and they're like, man, there's a sense of pride, and that definitely comes with growing your own lawn for sure.
No, and that's the thing is like it's the success, right, is intoxicating. I think Matt's talked about it before. I know Ray's talked about it before. I feel it. It's like you see that and you do it, and you get trust from more people of, hey, this guy knows what he's doing, and that's always good. But that intrinsic reward of just seeing it and being like, man, all that hard work, all that time, all that energy, all that research, everything that goes into that. That's like that whole self-fulfilling prophecy that you want to see happen. It's usually the other way around when you think about that. But that's awesome. That's awesome, and especially to be self-taught, self-educated. So you're going through how the house, you mean that you're there now, how long have you been there, and what did you inherit right when you got there? And then did you move the needle at all before you took over this whole journey towards making the lawn better?
Yeah, so the way God worked it out was amazing because I didn't know I was going to go into the military. As I mentioned to you guys pre-show, I knew that I was not college, but I did not have any desire to go to college. When I got out, I was like, I'm going to find me a vocation that I'm good at and go into the work field. Well, after getting a real taste of the work field, not so much fun as being a kid and being able to hang out with your buddies and go skating all the time. So the military, my dad had thrown the military idea at me. Dad, I am not, I'm not a military guy. But 9/11 had happened, and that had a really huge impact on me and my life, and where I'm at today. And my family wouldn't be here had 9/11 not really impacted me the way it did. Seeing our soldiers on the TV and hearing the talks of war and what happened back then, it kind of got me mad to be honest with you, as a young 18-year-old kid. And so I walked into the recruiting station, began to talk to them, and got a computer networking job with them, took the ASVAB. And at that time in 2001, 2, I believe, when I signed up, you had to wait in line to get to basic training. I think I had to wait 9 to 10 months to even get to go to basic training because there were so many people volunteering for the armed forces at that time. But long story short, after being in the North Carolina National Guard, coming back, I deployed in 2005 and into the year 2006 to Iraq. Was there, did some recovering, was dodging IEDs for a year. Came back because I was a veteran. I then qualified, and I think I was now at the age of 23 or 24. I now qualified for a VA loan. And so we bought the house that we're in 13 years ago, 2008. We bought it brand new construction via the
Nice.
VA loan, and a brand new construction. So yeah, it was brand new. And so we moved in, and then I turned around, got promoted into another unit. And then as soon as we moved in here, I think it was 2 months, I was gone again for my second deployment. And my
Oh,
wife
wow.
was here, and she was pregnant. And so she hates pregnancy, to say the least, because I wasn't here the whole time. So
Lord have
she
mercy.
loathes, yeah, that's the memory she has. But it was new
Yeah.
construction in 2008, and we've been here ever since. And yeah, so while I was gone, they would throw down some seed and put some fert down. My dad would come over and kind of maintain the yard a little bit. Nothing 10 10 10. He lives and dies by 10 10 10. That is,
Sure.
it doesn't matter what year, it 10 10 10. Like that's dad. And so 10 10 10. Like that's ingrained in my memory. I see it in my sleep. But he would come over, and then I let it slip for a couple years before, everything I told you guys just recently. I finally decided,
Sure.
seeing these superb lawns, I'm like, dude, how'd they get the stripes like that? How do they do that? I want to try to do that. And then here we go, about 3 years ago. And now here we are. So
Spring,
Man, yeah.
spring is the time of year that it makes it all worthwhile, right? Because no matter what you do, it's seemingly successful, and it takes away the pain of the
mhm,
world. Even when
yeah.
I was out running routes, right? That there's something about a spring morning when you get up, you hear the birds, you can smell it outside. There's a certain smell in the
Mhm,
air. There's a certain amount of humidity in the air. It's not too hot, and a
yeah.
customer can come out and tell you that they're gonna hack you with the blade and have their dog eat up your body parts, and you're just like, lady, hang on, I am enjoying the moment here. By the way, your lawn looks awesome, so I just wanted to get that out there. I
Matt,
love
that's not that's like August when the Vols are still 0-0. You're undefeated at that point. Life's good, right? You got all the
we were on
expectations in
course for a
front of you.
national championship this year. Okay, it started slow, but we've obviously picked it back up. And so you don't need, if the season started right now, who'd be in the FBS championship? That's all I'm saying. Um anyway, before I was so rudely interrupted there with such snark and
Roll, t-
sass.
roll
How's
Tide.
Ohio State doing, by the way? I
We're in the
shouldn't have
well,
even
we're in the
asked.
top four right now.
I
We're
know, I
we're in
know,
the top
I
four.
know. I
We're
can't
doing
I
fine.
can't even
Ohio
talk.
State.
I know.
Yeah.
See, everybody
It's
hates it. I love it.
these
Okay,
Canadians,
so
man.
so there's been tall fescue there for the entire time. It sounds like nothing's changed. You just basically picked up what was there and said, "All
Yep.
right, I'm going to make this better."
Yeah, being that I was deployed. My wife and my dad, obviously threw some. It's Kentucky 31. That's what they did. They threw it out there, and I don't think, after the initial planning and FERT, Dad's like, all right, there you go, and it was green and it looks good, and I still have some pictures of what it looked like then until I came home. But after that, I've made several videos about how I would, not knowing anything before I decided to really educate myself on how to actually, try to produce a good looking lawn. I'd walk out
Mhm.
there and throw some seed down and, throw some, hope it rains, and it would come up, and then it would like, what happened to that? Oh, well, back to the football game, whatever. And just like, it wasn't, there wasn't a spark there to want to go deeper with it yet. So there, obviously, it was Kentucky 31 and weeds. And then I know that prior to 3 years ago now, the year before that, and maybe even the year before that, 2 years prior to when I really started, asking the question, how do I get a nice looking lawn? Didn't do a dang thing to the yard. So it was just that's where the POA obviously came up. The weeds crept in, and then here I am literally making a decision. Okay, I'm going to have a nice yard walking out. And the True Green guys like, yeah, this is an uphill fight. But guess what? Of course, he hasn't come back since to be like, look what I did, sucker. Like, yeah, that's never happened. You don't get that satisfaction. But it was mainly just weed filled with a sprinkling of fescue in it. So yeah.
So what was your first thing, or you've learned slow, but like maybe what was your first objective, right? If we're gonna talk in military terms here, what were you trying to achieve at first? Was it just like, I'm gonna do some things and see if this all works, or was there like one specific thing that you tried to go after?
So being that, when I got online, and obviously you guys are sure familiar with Pete from GCI Turf. When I
Oh, yeah.
heard Pete was from North Carolina, ding ding, follow that guy. And then when I heard 25 years experience, follow that guy. Listen, like, I'm not the smartest guy in the world. When a guy has 25 years experience in lawn care and he's from North Carolina, follow that guy. Like, that's just me. But
Yeah.
and so I started watching Pete's videos. Okay, what's this guy? And obviously he didn't go by what I'm doing. And there's lawn care plans out there, so I did get on a lawn care plan, with the LCN lawn care plan. But I would watch Pete primarily because he's in the same region as me. So the first objective that I really saw was, okay, I'm in the spring, and everything I'm hearing is I need to plant in the fall. So what I'm going to do is make my lawn look the very best I can make it look until fall. And so that being the case, I did some occasional 2,4-D loads, 2,4-D, we'd be gone or whatever, and would spray and try. I think I hit the Milorganite train and just threw down Milorganite and darkened it up. And so it was just spray some weeds, throw some Milorganite, make it look the best I can. I figured out that I didn't know that my little battery-powered Black & Decker weed eater could edge, so I started edging. So it was things like that, just
Nice.
doing things you never did before, that you're taking a little more pride, a little more care, and just kind of sort of document. Well, even then, I don't even know if I was documenting that. I was going to wait until I really was just feeding myself with, okay, Pete says we need to do this. He says we need to put down starter fur in the fall with the seed, and kind of preparing on what the game plan was for upcoming, September here where I'm at, to really throw down. So until then, I tried to work with what I had. And like I said, most of it was garbage, but I made it look the best looking garbage lawn that I could. And actually, to believe it or not, my neighbor will tell you it looked pretty good, because a lot of people in the neighborhood, there's not a lot of people that, as I've heard somebody say, if most people would just throw some fert, throw some seed, and aerate, your lawn will look, you would have 90% better looking lawn than your neighbors. And it's true here. If people would do that, they would stand out. But a lot of folks here in the neighborhood haven't. But yeah, it was the best looking that it could look at the time until fall came.
Yeah, I like what you said there about like the edging and like all those little things that you can continue to add to the mix, and then at the end, you just kind of hinted at it. Like, that's the beauty of this, whether it's a hobby or profession, is like, as good as it can be is as never good as it is, right? Like, you can always make it better, and there's always like that next little thing that you can wring out of the rag and get that next 1 or 2 or 3%. And maybe it's a product choice, maybe it's a cultural practice, maybe it's a different type of seed or species or something that you're putting in there. And it could just be little detail things like, hey, I've always edged the sidewalk, but now I'm going to edge the driveway. And, like you said, somebody comes by and says, dang, Steve, that's looking pretty good. And you're just like, I know. Right. And it's that moment, right? You just live for those moments. So that's pretty cool. So, okay.
Yeah.
So now you're a year into it or whatever. I guess, well, that you started then. Where are you now? Like, where do things stand? What are, as you've gone through this?
Hang on. Let me stop you before we get to now.
Yeah.
I revel in other people's misery because I'm a miserable person. Let me ask, what were your first pain points where you were questioning yourself over whether or not the lawn was a good idea? Or I don't know, you may never reach that, but has there been some moments where you were like, I've got myself in a hole, I'm not sure which way to pivot?
Yeah, I would say it's probably with what I'm still struggling with today, because I am new to this and I am a 100% a beginner. Like I said, everything is YouTube driven. So, I've not, I've not worked for a lawn care company, as I always say in my videos, and I always like to put that out to people. Please don't take all your advice from this guy. I'm just showing you what I do. But I think right now, obviously, like I was saying, seeing it come up and grow that first year of planting it, I've stuck with GCIC because, like I said, he's from North Carolina. It's in his reason. You see his lawn, it's like, wow, that's the model to chase. And so that's what I've worked with. And so GCI turf seed. And then everything was going great. We had some fungus issues, obviously. Nothing that made me want to quit, but it does make your heart drop when it's beautiful, fertilized, green-looking lawn, and all of a sudden I had some tingy orange show up overnight, not knowing what this is. Here you go. Here. This is so that I guess that would be the answer, Matt. Is it was the fungus, because here's the school of the way my dad thinks. Oh, we don't need to do the fungicide. They're just trying to get your money on that. And that's the thinking I had when I looked at that lawn care plan.
It's fine. We'll fertilize our way out of it, right?
Uh-huh.
You know how many people
I got a bag of triple 10 for $12.97 at the Walmart.
That's right. And then, that's when you go back and tell dear old dad, like, hey, Father, all you're doing is just setting the table so I can put more seed down after this completely wipes me out. Like, we had a little problem before, but after you came out here and, dumped a little bit of gasoline all over it, i.e. the 10-10-10, we're going here, that's when you got the house on fire and you wait 15 minutes to call the fire department and make sure it is a total loss, right? That is throwing the 10-10-10 on fescue with brown patch in North Carolina in the middle of summer. That's what that is. So
hey, so all I gotta say is, aren't a lot of dads similar? Because you know what my dad used to do that
I can't imagine
that made his lawn care a lot more complicated.
Uh-huh.
Back in the day, dear dad had a can of Bud Light in one hand and the water hose in the other.
Oh.
And it was about 6:00 at night.
Just feeding, just out there,
just hand watering, waving to the neighbors.
Yep, like he's the zookeeper going into the pen. Hey, it's your nightly feeding, boys. Come and get it.
Yeah.
And that large patch is going. Mr. Ito's out here feeding us again. That's right.
Actually, it was. You know what was enjoying Dad's socializing hour with the neighbors and whatever.
Yeah.
The take all and the dollar spot. No, that's when I learned about Ben Late. Ryan, because Dad was still alive when that was legal. So yeah, after his watering thing, I'd be out there with the super sprayer that thankfully he built for me, and I was just gunning down the lawn with fungicides, and it all worked out. But I'm just saying that dads are similar because.
See, Mr. Ferguson, what you got to understand is Ray is old enough that many of the harshest chemicals known to man that were allowed on turf were still legal when he was up and coming. Like, there was no YouTube, so his education in lawn care came from.
Did I survive or did I twitch out?
Yeah, did I switch out? And also, I'm just trying to make the lawn good so I can play lawn darts, right? Like, those were the two things. Yeah. Those were the overriding factors in his lawn journey. So. It's a little bit different now. You just, maybe you got a trampoline out there for the kids. There's no, javelin spears that somebody can lose a foot over. But so the disease thing is an issue, right? Like, it's always going to be an issue. So is that the now? It's like, hey, do you feel, okay, number one, kind of piggybacking on Matt's question, do you feel like you've maxed out, or is there still room to grow outside of the disease issue? Let's just table that for a second. But are there other areas that you think you can grow yet that you're like, you know what, I know I'm doing a good job, but I don't feel confident there? What are some of those things outside of the disease thing? Because that's a whole big animal we'll tackle in a minute.
Oh yeah.
We'll help you out.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it, because there is, oh my gosh, there is so much room to grow. And I'm not, and just to be clear, if I didn't make it clear earlier, I'm not in it as a business. It is totally a hobby for me. And so that's why when I listen to you guys, I'm like, what are they talking about? The knowledge that you guys spew. I'm serious. Like, that's why I tell people, please don't listen to me. But as far as getting back to this,
I was gonna say, if there's at any point that you feel that way, please stop us. Because seriously,
No,
we'll
you're
not
good, man.
dumb it down or anything, but we want to make sure you understand. So please don't ever feel like, don't be like, stop. Like you can just
You're
stop us.
good.
So go
Oh, I
on,
feel
go on. I'm
comfortable.
sorry.
No, with the fungicide, I'll just point out that was the first time my heart sank. For the very first year, you've grown this beautiful looking fescue grass. And then, I think it was, the early parts of spring, probably overnight rain, and all of a sudden there's this tingy orange all across, and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
Go back to
Mm-hmm.
YouTube. And then there's like, what do I do, Pete? Like, I need Pete on speed dial. Like, what do I do now? And so that's where, and luckily, I started, going back to the lawn care plan. Like, hey, num num, this is why you're on the lawn care plan. Maybe you should kind of pay attention to it. And it quickly, basically, taught me there is no shortcuts. Where sometimes like we don't need the directions. We're man, you put it together. You don't need the direct. So it's like no, there is no shortcuts. Okay, this fungicide thing, I learned very quickly it is real. It's not a waste of money. It's not a gimmick to just get my few dollars that I have in my bank account. Okay, I see it in my lawn now, so it's manifested there. That I need to learn how to tackle it. And so that's what I began to research then. So we got through the fungicide and survived basically all that. So I feel like I've kind of got through that, and we can obviously talk about it if you want to. But the thing that's gotten me is I seem to have hit this period currently, and I thought I had it figured out, and I didn't. I hit about August, and obviously North Carolina, it's humid, it's hot, very humid and hot, and all of a sudden it just started fading away. I specifically remember we went down to the Atlantic Beach, we came back, and it was like sections of the yard had been shipped away on U-Haul. I was like, what happened? Like it was just like what happened? It was a beautiful green looking lawn, and there you
Oh
see it on
man.
the screen. It's like, what's going on? And so I was totally stunned and puzzled. Like what's going on? And so from August and excuse me, actually it was earlier than I think it was early July, all the way into August. It was like slowly just going away. And I was just totally stunned, like, what is this? And I think I was so disappointed. I don't know if I went and researched how has this happened, what's happening, but I
Sure.
couldn't figure it out. Like, why is it just melting? But I use the term in my videos. It just melted away. It seems like day by day melted
So
away.
what was your summer like this year? I mean, as far as like, was it hotter than normal? Was it wetter, drier than normal? What would you say? You live there, for your entire life, just about. So what would you think?
This past summer, the first season this happened, I mean, I would say it was an average summer based off, this
Yeah.
past summer, we had, I
Hmm.
believe, Mr. Kevin can probably help me in the chat because I saw his name pop up. I think it was the hottest May in North Carolina history this past May.
Wow.
And I survived it
And
this
dry.
May.
Man, it was dry.
Dry, no rain. It was hot. Yeah, it was no rain, and maybe that's what it was. No lack of rain. We didn't have any rain whatsoever. Maybe that's what it was. But my original thinking to the first time the lawn melted away, I started thinking on that. It bothered me. I could not get it off my brain. Why did that happen? And as I began to look through some of Pete's material, I saw the definition of K, stress relief. And it hit me. I was like, okay, let me look at my last soil test because I had performed a soil test that first year, and my K was so minimal. It was so small. I'm like, maybe that's the answer right there. It was my potassium. Stress relief, sun. If you don't have any stress relief, the sun's just going to eat it away. So the second year, replanting in September and coming back with, then I did cool blue like an idiot because I wanted to, it was the hot thing at the time with bluegrass. Total mistake there, but I learned. But I started pumping in potassium this past year and was like, I'm going to hit potassium. That's why my yard melted away. Here's what we're doing, guys, filming on YouTube. Like, we're pumping potassium. We're doing CK. We're doing, 0020. I did some 0048. And to
Hmm.
be honest with you, this past summer, it helped. It did help a lot. When I did a soil test, I was still below the bar on K, but I was like, really? Like, why am I still? I feel like I overdid potassium. But it did get me through June, through July. 4th of July pictures looked awesome in my yard. I was like, I figured it out. Mr. Ferguson is the man. Ha ha ha. Screw you, lawn. I figured it out. It was
Yeah.
potassium. And here comes late August. late August into September, and here it starts happening again. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And you talk about feeling like defeated. That's literally this past summer. That's when I felt the most defeated. Not that I think in my head at one time I said, screw this, man. I don't need a YouTube channel. But in the same sense, I'm like, this is great content because there's other people out there that's having this same exact problem as me. They're seeing their lawn melt away and they're like, why is this happening? And I don't know. And I thought it was potassium, but and then I started turning towards lack of insecticide. Is it an insecticide problem, an insect problem eating away the lawn? So those have been my directions. First it was K, and I know that I need to raise my K, but then it turned to, am I not putting insecticide down? Is this an infestation of bugs just coming in and eating it all up? So that's kind of been my trouble spot, having a nice looking lawn all the way basically to August, and then it just falls apart and can't consistently keep it year round with this North Carolina heat. That's been my struggle.
Yeah, and I think the things when we bring when we have DIYers and homeowners on here, the probably the most important set of skills you can develop, right, is that there's certainly a lot of products out there that help, and not here to disparage any of those or anything like that, but more so on the sense of you know, learning how to develop your diagnostic skills, right? Like in your job, right? You talked a little bit about it, off the show, but you wouldn't just like hand somebody a new device and be like, oh, that'll fix it, just take it. Like, you want to help them get to the root of their problem, right? And figure out, okay, like, is it this? Is it that? Is it, go through the flow chart in your mind of how to troubleshoot and diagnose that. And I think those are some of the really important skills that, if you're looking for good content ideas and creators, if you're out there listening, I think that is almost more important than showing what products, do and don't work. And to that end, on the product side, I think something that would benefit everybody is using check plots, right? So like with your K apps, like put a little, 4x4 sheet of plywood down someplace the same time every time. And okay, hey, are we seeing more or less stress? If that's the, sort of the metric in that case, here or not, right? Because it's going to tell us if it's a product issue or maybe it's something that's not related, and that could be an issue too. So certainly, there's both sides of it, right? Like there's the diagnostic side, and there's, hey, what products can I leverage against the threat, or risk that I'm facing here, and how can I do that effectively? But one thing too that I thought about, and Ray, maybe you can help out here. Ray, can you talk to Mr. Ferguson about summer decline, right? And particularly, not so much, biotic situations or biotic issues, but more abiotic stress and how that occurs and what happens over the course of summertime that leads us to crop failure.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan, for putting it so succinctly, in that basically what you're looking at is you're looking at grass that is outside of its optimum growth potential. And what's causing that is it's just too hot. It's just too hot. And what exacerbates that is not having enough water. And it just adds up to the point where I don't care how good a fungicide program you have. I don't care if you've preventatively treated for insect pests. And also, surprisingly, other thing that doesn't matter is your potassium levels. Because what is actually going to make or break your turfgrass conditions is, number one, temperatures, and number two, moisture content. Because, by the way, I go through that too, where I call where I'm living Gilligan's Island. You know why I call it Gilligan's Island? We can be without rain. We can be without rain for months on end. Months. And then all of a sudden it flash floods. And then it's gone.
Yeah.
And so I don't care if somebody says that, oh, grass X or grass Y is quote unquote drought resistant. Yeah, you take your drought resistance and watch this when it doesn't rain for 60 to 90 days.
Right.
And I'm pretty, and and looking at your pictures, I see a particular pattern in your grass. I notice it's a lot more compromised as you get closer to the road.
Yep.
And you know why? Because that grass is trying to endure the heat coming off of the road.
Asphalt. Yeah.
Okay. And then likewise, on the side of your house, which direction does that side of the house face, Steve?
The sun. So it's facing the west. So the sun comes on this picture. It comes from the right to the left, if that makes sense.
Okay. No, that makes plenty of sense, because what I'm seeing is when the sun reflects off of the house, that turns into an endurance test for the grass too. Because, I'm thinking in terms of, unlike us, the grass cannot run into the house, crank up the AC, and suck down a glass of sweet tea. Grass can't do that.
I heard that, right? That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you see, Matt, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, I totally get it.
Off on you there.
Oh, well, it's already come off on me. So, and can't deny that. But in any case, what I see happening to you is the side effects of really hot weather. That's just what I'm seeing. Super hot weather, right?
People that are watching this that have never managed turf in North Carolina or the southern ends of the transition zone, it's a bit of a different animal. It's just weird. And it's hard to describe. Like one of the things we were looking at earlier this year was I was talking with Ryan Knorr because earlier in the season than I was in Tennessee, he was having higher highs and occasionally would have lower lows. And oftentimes he would have higher humidity. And the strange thing about it though was, his perennial ryegrass was staying alive, and that's we were trying to figure a lot of that out. But also the growing season there is quite a bit shorter, right? So you've got an extensive period of snow cover that takes place. The growing season gets started a lot later into the season, where here really by the end of February, you're starting to get cut again. And, March rolls around and you're full throttle, 100% right back in the throes of it. And some areas, and not, I think by then Ryan's pretty much at it too. But, some places a little further up north, they may not get going until April, or they may not even, up in the northern parts of Michigan and stuff, or Minnesota, they may not be getting going until May. And so, down here where really, the grass is going to continue to be cut until about Christmas. And so, it's a very short amount of time that you really can take off. And then we have weird years like this time 3 years ago when the third week of February, it was 86 degrees outside. And, what do you do when that takes place? You're 65 at night, you're 86 during the day, and it's February. And you've got tall fescue that's just blasting out of the ground at 100 miles an hour. And by the time March rolls around, you've got a lawn full of brown patch. It's crazy. So, and it's not to say that's always the case here, but it's one of those things that happens. And when it starts like that, and it starts hot, starts dry, and then typically when we get rain, we get I don't know how it is for you, but we average 50 inches of rain a year over here, and when we get rain, typically we're getting an inch, 2 inch dump, in an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then it's going to be dry, right? And so you've just got this massive amount of rainfall that came down. What's your absorption rate? And it's not going to be very high, right? And so you kind of run into these situations, and you're always having to pivot and jump back and forth, and it presents a managing turf in this area is it's a different animal. I'll put it that way, and that's why I gave up. And even for my lawn. I'm just doing Bermuda because I'm not dealing with this. And the reality of the situation is that no matter how good your program is, no matter how good you dial in things, no matter how kind the weather is to you, you can pretty much write off 20% of your grass every year. It's going to go somewhere. I don't know where it's going to go. Like you said, it's going to hop into the back of a U-Haul and just vaporize.
Go away. Yeah.
And that can be even on a good fungicide program, the same thing can happen. And where you do lose that 20%, a lot of times you're going to get 20% infiltration to take its place from Bermuda grass. And then you got a whole new set of issues on you if you're trying to maintain a tall fescue lawn. So
Yes.
it's a little bit different. And I want to make it clear that is especially for someone that just says, you know what, I'm going to dive into this and figure it out one day at a time. Yeah, it's going to take a while to figure it out. You know, like
Yeah.
Pete's been doing it for 25 years. And I guarantee you, if you ask him right now, he and I talk enough to know that you learn something new every day, every week, every month, every year. And that's what makes so much of this fun for people too, is that it's a never ending quest, right? And you're never satisfied. You can never stop learning, and you can take it as far as you want to. So I brought up the whole thing about pain points, not to actually revel in your misery, but to say that, it's completely normal. And these challenges are going to continue to present themselves. And
Mhm.
don't let it defeat you, because it's all part of the process, right? And I could tell you, starting right now, I could talk nonstop for 3 hours about lawns that I've killed on accident, right? Um, Things that are completely catastrophic that launched investigations into me, and things that are just absolutely minor. Um, Even landscape around that has died, that you've got to play detective work on, and you don't know why. Every time you plant a shrub here, it dies. And it doesn't matter what shrub you plant, but every time you put one in this spot, it dies 100% of the time. And you're sending off soil analyses, and you're involving uh, um, the state and the extension office, and come to find out, it's where it's positioned behind a basketball goal, and it gets hit by a basketball every time the neighborhood kid airballs it. Right, it hits it every
Right.
time it killed it. And it took you a year and a half just to figure that out, because you were out there
Mhm.
at the right time and you saw it happen. And
Right.
it's one of those things, like he talked about heat reflecting off the side of the house. Do you know
Mhm.
how many burn spots I've seen in grass in a perfect square where it's been
Mhm.
reflecting off a window and it left a dead
Yep.
spot in a lawn? And it's only because I got there at the opportune time that I was able to figure out why it was there. So
That is exactly. We went over to my neighbor, and me and my wife are standing there talking to Mr. Kevin. He's well known on the channel, Mr. Kevin. And we're standing there, and it started burning. I was like, "What is it?" And there's a window right there, and it's slightly elevated, right above his driveway. And I mean, the sun is hitting it perfect, and it's shining right on us. And we're like, "Oh my goodness!" And I'm very shocked that it's not. I think he backs his car up a certain distance now because it could laying right on his vehicle. But I know exactly what you're talking about. That's crazy how that happened. Yeah.
and that's what makes this fun and challenging at the same time.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
again, that's why it's not to beat you up that I bring it up. It's to say that it's
No.
completely normal, and the same things you're going through, we still go through them all the time too. Well, I don't anymore, because I don't have to treat lawns anymore unless I choose to. So that's lucky for me. Um, all right, so we're there, and I guess we'll kind of move on to the point where I believe you sent a soil test to us. Is that correct? Did I make that up?
Yeah, so
Oh, here we
one
go.
of
Here we go.
those, there we go. Yeah, this is from the local extension. I've never been there before. Was like, okay, I'm going to try these. So this is the one and only time I've ever went to a local extension in my county here and delivered a soil test. I can't even. Hopefully the date is on there because I can't even remember when this was. Yeah,
Recently, September.
September. Okay, beginning of September. Since it was free, I was like, hey, why not? And so yeah.
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 Well, it's funny what all kind of stands out here, which is not really much except for do I not see? Oh, I thought pH is 6.9. You're good there. You got plenty of manganese. My goodness, you got some manganese.
It has consistently been high over, that's 3 years. Manganese has always been high and just in the soil, actually. While I talk to you, I'm gonna pull up some of my first.
That's the highest manganese I've ever seen, as a matter of fact.
I've seen it that high, Matt. I've seen it
Have
that
you?
high.
I never have.
I've
I've never
it.
seen zinc that
No,
high either.
Okay, there are certain regions where, for whatever reason, the soil composition tends to have very high levels of the metallic elements such as manganese and zinc and copper. But you know what your saving grace is here?
His soil pH.
Yes, because if his soil pH were under 6, all of that manganese, copper, and zinc would become extremely toxic. And that would happen very fast.
Okay.
I almost wonder if I don't know. I'd be real curious. And this is way too technical, but I'd be curious if you put say a pound or even a half pound of nitrogen from ammonium sulfate on this, and you buffered that upper quarter of an inch to a 5.5, could that lead to temporary issues because of just extreme
it wouldn't
solubility over
be
a short period of time?
No, it wouldn't cause a problem because a half a pound or even a quarter pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square foot from ammonium sulfate would not acidify this low enough and long enough to cause that kind of a problem. But I'm guessing that if you were to ever start using ammonium sulfate as your nitrogen source, you'd see incredibly green grass.
Okay.
I'm talking stupidly green grass, and it would be above and beyond any of the brand name or proprietary products that you're familiar with.
Okay.
And so here's the thing, and I wonder too: is this parts per million or pounds per acre? Because that is, I mean, that is, my goodness, that's got to be parts per million. Yeah, I think so, because I think based off the phosphorus and potassium recommendations here, I'm assuming they're reporting that in parts per million. Because if it was 50 parts per million of potassium, they wouldn't be saying that was above optimum. Oh wait, J Pink just sent it to me over here in a different one. Let's see if they have it listed out. No, they don't. They don't specifically state on this, but we'll call it. It's got to be parts per million. It has to be. So in effect, so ammonium sulfate is an acidifying fertilizer, right? And what happens is that at neutral pHs or in most instances, unless your soil is extremely acidic, very quickly your micronutrients will, and I use this term lovingly, bind up. It will lose its solubility because it will react with other nutrients in your soil, namely calcium and phosphorus, right? And so, for instance, like a lot of that manganese may exist in your soil as manganese phosphate or zinc phosphate. And through applying an acidifying fertilizer, reducing that pH, it can solubilize that zinc phosphate and that manganese phosphate. And so, through the acidification, and one, you're getting nitrogen from the ammonium sulfate, you're getting a bit of an acidifying effect. You're also solubilizing those micronutrients. And so, as you increase in solubility, you get the greater potential for uptake, right? Because plants don't take up solids, right? That the way plants take up nutrients is by drinking it. We eat as humans. We eat solid food. Plants can't eat solids. They have to drink all their nutritional uptake, right? And so the important thing is always solubility. Because if a plant's going to be able to drink it, it has to be in solution, not in suspension, unless you're at the nano size scale where it could actually move into the leaf tissue, but actually, um, it actually dissolved, right? And so, using an acidifier fertilizer like that and increase the solubility of these micronutrients. And so, what you end up getting out of that is you get to take advantage of these free micronutrients that you got in the soil if you're looking for that type of color response. So, instead of going out and spraying
Hell
a
yeah.
micronutrient package right across your lawn and doing it every 2 weeks, or you got an event coming up and you light it up wiring or whatever the case may be, you can
Mhm.
do that. Nothing wrong with that. But you can do the same thing by just applying a $13 bag of ammonium sulfate, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
you got the same color response as if you did a fertilizer application and a micronutrient application, right? Because you get to capitalize on what you've already got built up in the soil. Your potassium levels aren't bad at all anymore. So you're at 100, and typically, like from my perspective, when I'm managing properties, um, it's when I dip below 100 is where I start to get nervous. You're at 100, so theoretically, you could probably go an entire year without applying potassium, and you're going to be fine. Um,
Awesome.
that's not to say you should stop applying potassium for the rest of your life, kind of sort of thing. But if you let it go for
Right.
a year, take a look and see where you are, see how much you dipped.
Mhm.
It's not really a big deal to lose 20, 30 parts per million of potassium in a year. Then you can start adding it back in your program. Add a couple apps, try and get a pound of potassium down through the course of the year or whatever, and bring it back up to 100. Now, depending on how intensive you want to do this, there's other ways out there. There's other methodologies, like MLSN says you can let it ride all the way down to 50 parts per million, and you're going to be safe because you're not going to elicit deficiency symptoms until you get to 50 parts per million. To me, that's cutting it too close. It makes me nervous. It, it's
Mhm.
scientifically sound, but I panic at that, and because I don't want to have to. For me, I never wanted to have the conversation with the customer that sorry, it looks like dog trash because I was trying to experiment to see how low I could take your potassium levels. That was not
Right.
a conversation I could have with a customer, right? And so
Yeah.
100 for me was always where I felt comfortable, right? If I'm at 120, 130, yeah, I'll skimp on some potassium. If I'm at 65, 70 parts per million, I'm probably not going to skip on potassium. I'm going to start adding that into the program, kind of sort of thing. At 82 parts per million of phosphorus, I'm not worried about applying phosphorus. Save the money. You don't need to. And what's actually kind of fun for you in this scenario, too, is uh, even during seed establishment, yeah,
Mhm.
if you want to apply a little bit of seed establishment, can you? Yeah. Do you have to? No. Are you going to see much of a difference if you don't? Probably not.
Okay.
It won't be enough of a difference that you'll be able to look at and be like, you know what? I'm really glad. You won't notice the difference will be so small it's insignificant at that point because you have plenty of phosphorus and you have a soil pH that is actually beneficial for the availability of that phosphorus as well too. You'll hear a lot of these terms like, "Oh, is my phosphorus locked up? Are my nutrients locked up?" It's really unimportant unless you're trying to get a an unnatural amount of material into the plant, right? So
Mhm.
if you're trying to like for instance, a lot of people apply micronutrients because they love that blue green look, right? Well,
Right.
unfortunately, that's also you're asking the plant to be a level of green that's beyond its genetic limit. And so that's why you have to continue to dose that in order to keep it beyond its genetic limit. And the same thing when we talked about things that are locked up, so to speak. Once you have grass growing, what's beautiful about the grass is that as long as it's in your soil, whether it's locked up or not, the plants are going to be able to take it up. And that's because the roots have this amazing phenomena called exudates. And it's where it's emitting chemicals and organic compounds out of the roots, out of the root tips itself, that will solubilize those nutrients that are in the soil and allow them to come up so the plants can drink it and take it into the plant, right? So you never have to worry about, I'm telling you, for the rest of your life, you will never have to worry about supplementing micronutrients probably ever again. If you're looking for that blue-green type of color, you can put down some ammonium sulfate and it's going to turn that blue-green type of color. One thing you do have to pay attention to, though, is you're going to have to guard your pH well because, realistically, beyond a 6, I'd say you're probably going to be fine at a 6. It'd be somewhere. I think the high risk point would be like a 5.5. You get to a 5.5, manganese toxicity, zinc toxicity in this particular case too. Copper too is incredibly high. You're starting to really flirt with disaster there because so much of it can get into the plant. Have you ever over applied iron to this point?
Oh yeah.
You know how it turns that black color?
Yeah, I've seen it get dark like that. Yep.
So manganese toxicity would be very similar, or zinc toxicity. That's iron toxicity that you elicited there with that dark color. If your pH gets too low, all of this becomes solubilized at one time. And then as the plant takes that up, you've run into a situation where, you roasted the grass, but you didn't really do anything except fertilize it. So it would be, if this were a property I maintained, I would be very cognizant of the pH and be very corrective about it once it got to a pH of, me personally, I'd probably let it get to like a 5.7, 5.8, and then I'd start doing corrective lime applications to it. Ray would probably play it a little safer, and at a 6, you'd probably start Ray.
Well, actually, I would start it at, watching it at 6. And the other thing that I'd be doing is, because your manganese and zinc levels and copper levels are so high, believe it or not, what I'd do is I'd look for a micronutrient treatment that was more iron heavy rather than manganese, zinc, and copper heavy. In fact, your lawn would be the special case where my routine treatment for it would consist of 2100 ammonium sulfate and iron in the form of iron sulfate. That would literally be my routine application on a lawn like yours. And the reason why is because iron in appropriate amounts is a counterbalance to high zinc levels and high manganese levels. Do
you have red soil?
No. Now in the general area, there is red soil. Yeah, but not in my lawn. It's not red.
But you are in what I'd call a red dirt region, right? You're in a red dirt region because, by the way, Matt, I'm familiar with red dirt, and that's why I know about manganese toxicity because of that.
Yeah, so DeMay, we were taking a look at his soil test here and telling him he didn't really have to worry a whole lot about micronutrients with those loads right there. Get a dump truck load of that right there, boy.
Look at that copper level.
Boy, I'm surprised.
There's not going to be any algae on that lawn.
It could.
That's
Does your soil have like a radioactive looking blue, green, teal color to it? I'm just curious with all that.
I was going to say that it's pretty clear that somebody was feeding Centrum Silver vitamins to this soil long before the house was built. So kudos.
Copper nails. And
maybe a little bit of polydent in the lawn that'll kind of smooth things out, something like that. Okay.
DeMay, the only thing we said about nitrogen was using ammonium sulfate to elicit a pretty strong color response because of potential solubility of those micronutrients there. But that's really about all we touched on nitrogen management. So I'm glad you're back.
Yeah, and I think I was just going to say, the ammonium sulfate people at home might be wondering, well, man, like that low of a pH and you're going to use an acidifying nitrogen source. Yeah, but it's also something that where pH is also at the top of mind here, as Ray was saying, where you're going to want to pay attention to it. You're going to get your best bang for your buck on using AMS, right? In terms of what you were saying, solubilizing those micronutrients that are already there, and the acidification effect you're gonna get, albeit weak, is still something that you're gonna have to manage pH anyway, right? Regardless of whether you use AMS or not. So I don't see that being a big deal. So again, that's more for the folks that are scoring at home and looking at that. So source wise, yeah, I think you're good there. However, if you used urea, I don't think there would be anything wrong with it, right? You're still going to get a pretty good response out of that as well. So, the thing I'm thinking about here, gentlemen, is, and I'll be interested to hear both of your takes. I have my own opinions, but I'll tell you if you're wrong, according to me. No, I'm kidding. Tall fescue. What's Matt Martin's plan of attack on tall fescue in terms of nitrogen management? And I just mean like distribution. So like, March, April, May, how much is going out? June, July, August, how much is going out? September, October, November, how much is going out? Regardless of sources, let's just talk about total for the year and how you would distribute that, like say on a percentage basis in those three quarters, essentially.
Yeah, so out of the gate, probably 1.5 pounds. Through the course of the summer, if we're getting a lot of rain and some cooler temperatures, probably up to 1 pound. And then in the fall is going to be somewhere around 2 pounds of N. So
a quarter and a half in those quarters, then, correct? So a quarter of your N in the first, March, April, May, another quarter of your total N June, July, August, and then 50% of your N in September, October, November. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, something
about 4 pounds
like
total.
That.
Okay.
Yeah, 4 to maybe even 4.5, depending on how the season's going.
Ooh.
Yeah, because
you're pouring those drinks heavy, Mr. Bartender.
If we have a mild fall, because this is kind of the situation we run into, right? Like for us here in Knoxville, it's August and September are dry months, and when it gets dry, you never know what you're going to get. Like that may mean you only get rain once a week, which is great, because then you're balling, right? You come right out of summer and it's on fire. But it could mean that it's not going to rain for 8 weeks at all, and it's going to be blazing 90 degrees the entire time, and then you're like, Lord have mercy, this fall sucks, right? And because then it goes straight from that, you start getting rain, and then it drops to 50 degrees, and you're like, well, I lost my whole overseed season. What do I do? And you're out there just spreading seed, feeling like a dumbass because it's not going to show up until the next spring. Like, oh yeah, this is good. I love this.
Ray, what about you? If you were magically transported again into the southeastern United States and you had tall fescue to take care of, how would you do it with your nitrogen? How would you distribute in those 3 quarters, knowing what you know about the climate and just how temperamental tall fescue can be sometimes?
Okay, what I'd be doing is 1/4 pound of N from, in his case, AMS per application in the spring. And then, depending on what the summer looks like, if it is hot and dry in the summer, I'd probably cut my nitrogen, and then I'd play it by ear going into the fall. Once we're past the hot weather, once it starts raining again, cools off, and the grass is actively growing again, then I would start hitting it, 1/4 to 1/2 pound per month of growing season, stopping about a month before the grass actually goes dormant. And my emphasis
might not go dormant there,
and
like totally.
But then my emphasis would be, and my emphasis would be on actually feeding up the grass in the fall. Because I heard what you said, Ryan, about how the fiscal year for cool season grass is in the fall.
Yeah, it starts September 1.
Yeah, so you better dot your I's and cross your T's, in the fall. And by the way, if your grass is fed up well enough in the fall, it will actually maintain reserves called carbohydrate reserves going into the spring so that your need for a lot of fertilizer in the spring and summer is actually very low, and that's actually in your favor.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you don't want to be doing to your grass, knowing that summer is brutal, you don't want to put your grass on a lot of nitrogen and then it turn hot and humid, because that's just torture. That would be like, okay, that kid eating those 5 burritos, and then I put that kid on what I know as the Matterhorn at Magic Mountain in California. Have you ever seen that thing?
Yeah.
Every now in California.
It's Six Flags. It's
yeah.
intense.
These roller coasters.
For everybody, yes,
it's a roller coaster.
Add that to the list of the things that I'm scared of. I don't do roller coasters, man.
What about if you had to, real quick, because we were asking absurd questions before the show, which is where this came from, by the way. So, number one, if you don't know what we're talking about, I promise you, nobody here dropped acid at any point before or during this show, because they're probably like 5 burritos, man. These guys are toasted right now. None of that. Second thing is, if you don't watch the pre-show, you can hop on twitch.tv/The Grass Factor and watch that every week, Thursday, starting at 8 p.m., 1 hour before the regular show starts. So that's where that came from. Please don't think we're weird. Ray, we got to ask Matt real quick. This is our absurd question. Matt, if you had to do one of these 3 things, base jump, skydiving, or ride a roller coaster, had to do one, gun to your head, what are you going to do?
Skydive.
Really?
100%.
I would do
it tomorrow.
But you won't ride a roller coaster?
Yeah. It's the damnest thing, man. I'm telling you.
Okay.
Will not ride a roller coaster.
Click, 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 click.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the anxiety and the build-up versus if I'm in an airplane, just jump, boy! Boy, she thick, boy!
But
you can say airborne real loud when you jump. Airborne.
But then don't you think the anxiety clock starts in your head of, is the main chute going to come out?
Yeah.
Is the reserve chute going to come out? I don't know.
Well, at that point, you were in a life or death fight or flight situation, right? And so you've only got 20 seconds until you got impact, right? So the length of anxiety, how long does it take? I've been on a roller coaster before. I'll tell you right now. I grew up in Memphis. We had Liberty Land in Memphis. We had one of the oldest rinkety dink damn wooden roller coaster you've ever seen, called the Zippin' Pippin, and this thing was an OSHA
Wait, did
disaster.
You say Pippin or Pimpin'?
Yeah,
sorry.
A Zippin' Pippin for like Scottie Pippen kind of sounding thing, right?
Okay.
And boy, I'm telling you, it was the most miserable thing. And you come around a turn and you hear the wood creaking and cracking and stuff, and just get me for 3 minutes. You're dealing with this. If I got 20 seconds till impact, I mean, that's in terms of percentage points there. That's a much shorter ride.
Yeah.
Well, I'm telling you what, the next time
if I'm going to go, take me out quick, where I don't have to think about it a whole lot, because I don't deal with anxiety real well.
Next time we're together, we're going skydiving. So just book that. All right. So anyhow, let's get back to the nitrogen thing here real quick. So great points. And the thing you guys both touched on a few of the things I wanted to say regarding this, and then talk about, what your strategy's been and maybe where it might be holding you back too. The few things are, as Ray alluded to, I'm a huge proponent that your fiscal year for your cool season grass begins on September 1st. So, the physiology of the plant, right? And I'll see if I can pull this up real quick, but the physiology of the plant dictates that we've got what's called a bimodal growth pattern. Let me see if I can do this. Cool season growth chart. Pardon me, I should have been more prepared. But Ooh, this is a great one.
You didn't know you didn't know we were going to bring this up. You didn't know we were going to bring this up.
You know, we go into these things so unprepared, and our producer, Mr. J Pink, makes it so easy on us and makes us look so good. I can't thank him enough. So he puts up with a lot of our crap too. So there's also that. Okay. So throw that up for me, old J Pink. I know he's gonna mute my mic if I keep talking about him.
Okay. But you see this this growth curve?
Yep.
Okay, right about now here in the summer is if you were to be throwing down stupid amounts of nitrogen, let me give you another analogy.
What's that?
What would happen to you if you overate, like, say, the pepperoni special, and then you went to bed immediately, or anywhere, and then you went to bed immediately after that? How many Tums and Prilosec are you going to need to get through that night? I can't imagine it being good.
The amount of Pepto-Bismol that I would need is nowhere near the amount of trees I would kill via Charmin the following day. That's what I worry about, right? Parts of the Amazon rainforest would be extinct for life due to that choice. So I try not to make those choices and put myself in that position.
Yeah, but then likewise,
I did it again.
No, likewise,
Brazil, I'm so sorry.
Relevant to grass.
Yeah.
When grass is overfed, when it is not at a high growth potential, this is basically asking and begging for trouble.
Yeah.
And by the way, do you know when my dip in my growth curve is?
Well, yours is completely flipped. Yours is all summer long. Yours dip in the growth curves right now.
Yeah, my dip in my growth curve begins like from November until I want to say April. So, I don't get happy on my nitrogen right now either. I kind of start to pull back a little. But then speaking to somebody growing turf type tall fescue in the transition zone,
sure,
the time when you should be taking it easy because you're going to give the grass indigestion is basically between, I want to say, June through August. Do not listen to these people that say throw her down.
Well, let me give you a compounding factor here. This is particularly in North Carolina, and Paul Outlaw turned me on to how much of an issue this is in North Carolina, and it's interesting because it's much worse there than we have to deal with it here. Is during the rebound period of summer into fall, late summer into fall, particularly North Carolina is being eaten alive with gray leaf spot, and And so that presents a whole new set of challenges because you feel like the worst is over. You're out of brown patch season. Maybe you skirted through Pythium season. But now all of a sudden you've got brown patch part 2 in the form of gray leaf spot. And it's so severe. And this is what's crazy is I didn't realize it would be severe enough to completely smoke out a property. I've dealt with it in
devastating.
The few times I have to deal with it, it's never severe enough that it's caused that much of a problem. You get a little fungicide on it, you call it good, and you move on with your life, and typically don't have to deal with it. And, Paul Outlaw was talking to me. He's like, "No, man, like it is roasting lawns, absolutely smoking." I was like, "Man, that's crazy." I started doing a little reading, and NC State has like gray leaves, what gray leaves. I'm like, oh my goodness, everybody's having a panic attack over there. And he's sending pictures, of course. I'm like, wow, that is absolutely bananas. So I guess this may be a good segue to move over into fungicide management because I think probably what you feel most comfortable with up to this point would be brown patch, right? I think everybody starts to develop a bit of a process for managing brown patch. Pythium is probably the outlier because you won't see it every year. in your area. When it does happen, it typically comes on fast, hits hard, and then moves on. But I
Mhm.
think what people aren't prepared for, or oftentimes misdiagnose, or don't understand what the severity could be, which is even new to me, and that's gray leaf spot. I think that is a lot of the big missing caveat that's faced in your area. So
Right.
Okay.
we'll glance through this first, right? And we'll try not to beat you up with dollar signs too much on when it comes to fungicide management, because um there are ways to mind our budget around here. But with brown patch, what have you been doing up to this point for brown patch?
Propiconazole has been my friend. That's because a lot of what you just said, budget wise, I've looked at also listening to Pete. He's kind of, like I said, he's been kind of my mentor and he's on top of the 20 days, turn around, apply again. And it lasts what, 20, 20, 25, whatever. So I've not been as consistent as Pete, and you know how he's a stickler about things. I'm like, Pete, I'm a dude with a city job. I can't afford gallons of propiconazole all the time. But I've done propiconazole and oxystrobin in the cheap form of Disease X. Typically, I've thrown down that in the springtime, and then when I see brown patch kind of resurface, my attack has mainly been propiconazole. But when I'm seeing and maybe this is a question for you guys, can the turf develop a resistance against it if Mr. Ferguson's constantly throwing propiconazole? Is it eventually going to say, "Hey, bro, that don't work anymore"? Like taking too many, Tylenols all the time for a headache.
So all the answer is yes, and all of the
Yes.
very effective or highly effective classes of fungicides for gray leaf spot are have a very high risk of developing resistance, right? So that's one where, like, I think I saw in one of your videos you were using Cleary's 3336, right? So the active ingredient there is thiophenate methyl. You can
Once,
absolutely very,
yeah.
very quickly. Okay, once. Okay, good.
Yeah,
I would keep
I've
that.
used yeah, I used one treatment of that and that's it. And
Okay,
that's because again, Pete said, "Hey, I'm dabbling and trying this." I said, "You know what? Let me try that." So I put down
sure.
one application. To be honest, I
hmm
couldn't I didn't really notice a difference using it, and I still
hmm
have half the bottle left, and obviously we'll use it again, but
Yep.
didn't see a big change.
So
let,
it's
let me tell you.
go ahead.
Let me tell you what Cleary 3036 is normally used for when I apply it.
Mhm.
I normally use Cleary 3336 for a disease called either take all patch or for dollar spot. I do not ever run 3336 on gray leaf spot, and I avoid using it on brown patch or for brown patch. My foundational treatments for brown patch is actually yet another class of fungicide that may initially give you a little bit of sticker shock, but when you divide it out in terms of how many applications per acre you get out of the bottle, then it becomes worthy.
Right.
And if you have large patch or brown patch, foundational fungicide for that is something known as ProStar. And
So what I was going to say, and to kick off your season, I'll tell you that the overwhelm in most seasons that are relatively normal,
Mhm.
you'll see what we call a leaf spot or melting out helminthosporium in the spring when you have those gray days where it rains for 3 days, just drizzles for 3 days, and you have cloud cover
Mhm.
and you've got temperatures for it to grow, but you've got reduced light. You'll see helminthosporium, and that's where the grass just kind of turns yellow and has like some real light brown kind of spots on it, right?
Yeah.
And typically, my remediation for that is to just be patient. Let the sun come back out, dry it out, and it's going to recover. Usually sometime around May 15th is when you start to need to be cognizant of brown patch season, right? And what is the
Mhm.
old adage? You need 5 days in a row over 85 and 5 nights in a row over 65 and a 60% relative humidity, something like that, I think is what it is. You look at your extended forecast and you see that, which would be sometime around May for us. That's when it's time to be armed. Now, from my perspective, why I would never run a propiconazole type program is a propiconazole alone type program isn't even necessarily from the standpoint of resistance development. It would be more so because of the repeated applications of propiconazole in high periods of stress and tall fescue, in my experience, leads to turf decline.
Now,
And
why? Explain why.
because of the growth regulatory effects of the DMI.
Hmm. So what he's saying is originally propiconazole was being looked at as a growth regulator when it was developed originally. It was only through the testing that they figured out, hey, this actually has some really good fungistat and fungicidal properties. Let's go
Mhm.
ahead and put it as a fungicide, right? So you do get that effect. And, to Matt's point, you already have a stressed plant and now you're applying that. And so are you doing more harm than good? For sure. And, a lot of times people will look at those rates of, 1 to 2 fluid ounces, sometimes higher. And
Mhm.
God forbid if you do above 2 in the summertime on tall fescue in the South, my goodness. But, looking at rates, 1.5 to 2, and that's a lot. That's a lot to handle. So I think that's an important piece is the propiconazole, resistance aside, can lead to some issues, right? It's a good tool to have in the toolbox. The thing with the thiophanate methyl, Ray alluded to a little bit, is that it's another great tool, and it's like one of the best knockdown tools that we have for that. So like that is sort of the oh crap fungicide to have in there. Like you can mix it in for other
Gotcha.
things and don't feel like, one time you spray it and you're going to have resistance and things like that. But, don't
Right.
go to the well too often. Otherwise, it's not going to be there when you need it. And that's
Gotcha.
definitely one that you want to have on tall fescue in an area that is
Mhm.
very prone to gray leaf spot. So, the
Mhm.
other piece with respect to disease management and just overall, summer stress, getting back to the nitrogen piece a little bit that sort of leads into this whole disease talk is I think that loading up on the fall end is important. I think one thing as you alluded to just a bit ago about sometimes you don't go dormant. There is a tipping point
Mhm.
there. Where what Ray said, you're building those roots up, and you can get to a point where there's just not enough energy from the sun, right, to make enough food right through photosynthesis, and you're actually consuming those carbs now, right? It happens in Bermuda grass a lot where people push N too late and all the carbohydrate reserves that were built up over the summer during a period of peak root development, which is summer for Bermuda and it's fall for cool season, get
Mhm.
expended too early. And then you get through a stress period like in wintertime and get a cold snap, something like that. The plant's not going to crash. It's not going to die. This isn't Bermuda, but you can set yourself up for a tough spring and an even tougher summer. So that's a really unique piece right here that people that are listening to this and think, oh man, I've got tall fescue in Columbus, Ohio, or Chicago, Illinois, or Madison, Wisconsin, or somewhere in Connecticut. Like it's different. It's not the same. You're in a very unique situation there. So that's one thing to think about. And this all leads back into overall plant health going into the summer. You want to have the healthiest
Mhm.
plants that you possibly can, going into
Right.
summertime. The other piece, and I think we talked about this on the show with Paul Outlaw. I'd encourage you to watch that one. We'll send you a link. It's a good one because he's in North Carolina and he deals with a lot of tall fescue lawns. He's a pro, but I think there's maybe some useful stuff you can take away from it. And the one thing we talked
Mhm.
about there was, he uses growth regulators a lot, and he and I had a discussion on that show just about how important that is as an overall tool in the management, right? Because growth regulators allow us to do something that's called pre-stress conditioning. And what that means is that where the plant wants to expend a ton of energy to fuel top growth in the spring, like when we're going through a flush spring growth, we're
Mhm.
kind of holding that back and not allowing it to do that. And what it will do to a certain extent in the springtime is, either allow roots to not dissipate those carbohydrate reserves as quickly, or as much, and possibly even push some of that energy down for more root growth. Okay. And this is all work that was done a long time ago, 20 years ago, when these really became in vogue in the golf course industry. So we know that these are, this is scientifically backed, that this is a process that takes place with these products. So that being said, it might be something to look into, as you get into late March and going through May. And then when it starts to heat up, like, you got to back off. I think Paul said, Matt Ray, help me out here, but I want to say he was about mid-May, and that was it. Like, he was cutting it off and just letting the grass do its normal thing through summertime at that point. So
yes.
All that being said, again, you think, well, growth regulator, what the heck does that have to do with nitrogen? And what the hell does that have to do with brown patch? Again, you start to see all these interconnections here of how you can kind of manipulate nature in such a way that you can do that. Okay. So we talked a little bit about fungicides. I think, Ray, you mentioned ProStar. There's a couple other ones. I think, having the 336 in there is a good thing to have.
I also would look at how big is your lawn, Steve?
9,000.
How big is it? 9,000. Okay.
9,000.
You know what? Then you literally are the kind of guy where a 1 acre package or bottle of fungicide is worth it for you. Do you know why? You have 4 applications out of a 1 acre bottle. And so, for example, I'm even going to drop a bomb on poor Steve here in that.
Oh boy.
Given his gray leaf spot and brown patch pressure.
Hold your lemon propel.
Steve here is literally a lexicon candidate.
Oh yeah. I mean, lexicon would be a great choice. It's highly expensive. Here's one way to think about your acquisition strategy. Okay. Is, I think I can't remember who we talked about this before. You really have like 3 choices, I would say, in terms of like your budget planning. Number 1 is you just take the baddest person, or not person, but disease that you're going to deal with here, and you only focus on that. So if that's brown patch, hey, I'll do what I need to do to deal with brown patch. But if gray leaf spot gets me, if helmintosporium gets me, leaf spot, whatever, like, hey, you got the best of me, you won. Right? We didn't lose. We got right. That's the old adage in sports. Right? We didn't lose. We got beat. So take that and you deal with that. Your second one is maybe add a couple more of those, what I call post-patent products. Propiconazole is not under patent. 336 not under patent. And try to build that out and maybe deal with 1 or 2 or 3 of those diseases as best you can. You're not going to have like all the tools in the arsenal, but you got some more, that you're trying to deal with. And also in the background, you're dealing as best you can culturally with all these things too. Like we were talking about with, like the growth regulator stuff. And we haven't talked about the most important part, which is watering. We'll get to that here in just a minute. Your wife has some advice for you that she gave to us to give to you about the watering and the fungicide. So, she's feeding us notes. She didn't even have to super chat to get us to us too. She's on the back channel.
I'm anxious to hear. It's got to be something about saving money or don't recommend.
The question is we have a running debate about the timing of watering and fungus. So I guess the question is when is the appropriate time to water the lawn that is not going to contribute to the greatest disease pressure?
Okay. You know what? Let me, get into that, because my father with his can of Bud Light and the water hose.
Yeah.
That basically is the reason why I'm so familiar with disease management.
Your lawn growing up was the Petri dish, right? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. Mine was the Petri dish. So very quickly now, Deme, I got familiar with Benlate, Alaton, Daconil, and
all good stuff that you can't use anymore on home lawns, by the way.
No, Dicene M45.
Oh gosh.
And diethane M45 as well. So, but then to circle back to you, here's what I normally say about watering and lawns. I don't care when somebody waters, provided there's no more water going on the grass after 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I also don't want to see water going on the grass before 3 a.m. And the reason why is because between that 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. window is when, if the grass needs to dry out, it will normally do so. And you're not going to be sitting with wet feet overnight.
So tell us about
that's
I would agree. I would agree with the timings on that, especially in your locale. Like it's, that especially. Okay, so before we talk about the top of the heap with fungicides, let's think about all the cultural things, and watering is a huge component of this, right? Proper watering practices. Just take us through. We're not gonna. Hey, no judgment. You're in the tree of trust. It's okay. Tell us what you do right now. Like, what triggers a watering decision of, okay, now it's time to water? Are you watching the weather forecast and just going off of that? Are you looking for active wilt in the lawn and saying, oh, okay, that's my trigger? What is it? What is it for you that triggers that?
Yeah, definitely not having a well is a huge factor. And I hearing rumors now that my wife is in the chat, floating that idea out there. So she is one factor. So because water is stupid expensive, and
I'm sure.
yes.
So we've had to have. This was a video of how we had a conversation of, honey, we're planning. It's September. I'm going to have to water for a solid couple of days. So as far as a plan, it's basically like what you said. Hey, we're going to get some rain. I'm not going to water, and it's going off. We're very lax in watering. It's definitely not enough water going on the lawn for sure. Because of high cost and because of what's required there. I have no problem going out and doing the actual work, but it's running up the water bill, having 2 kids. And had I, being on a well, which is right down the road, there's some neighborhoods with wells. It would be awesome. I envy that,
Yeah.
but we have no sprinkler heads. I'm dragging sprinklers around, and when it's definitely getting, obviously when it's warm out here in North Carolina, and I'm seeing crispiness in the grass, clearly it's like, okay, I've stressed it out so much. It's time to get it moist. And really, it feels like putting a Band-Aid on it until we get a good, what I call Jesus rain, to come down and really soak it up and really moisten the ground up. So I'm sure that's probably the DIYer's guide right there to lack of water, because the city don't pay that much. So
well, that's the good news, is that it really is like the great equalizer in this whole thing, right? Because people with poor watering practices are probably the people that are putting down the most fungicide or wishing they could. And it's good to hear that you're on the drier side. Ray will agree with you 1,000% that, Ray, it's way easier, right, to manage dry turf than it is turf that is just on the whole Monday, Wednesday, Friday, set it and forget it schedule, right?
No, I got a horror story call while I was enjoying my gravy and biscuits this morning.
Sprinkler system's been on for 9 hours, Ray.
Right,
is that a
Ray.
problem?
No,
not
so
right.
should we let it go?
Interrupting your gravy and biscuit time.
Yeah, you got to be on. You got to be on silent during that time. Okay. You need to be off the grid.
No, some guy called me. Some guy called me this morning, telling me about dead spots in his Xeon Zoysia sod that he laid 6 months ago.
Surprise!
Wait, Matt. He is his own best friend in this case, because he told me something about having his irrigation system come on twice a day.
Oh boy, man!
And I literally dropped my.
I have a feeling. I don't know the whole dynamic here, but I got to think, and I know my wife would be the same way. Like I think Mrs. Ferguson and Mrs. DeMay would have our stuff out in the driveway in about 5 minutes if we were running it twice a day.
But
we wouldn't have to pack.
But
we wouldn't have. It would be nice. We wouldn't have to pack.
I got in trouble for turning the water on to put out my shed that was on fire. So I don't want to hear.
Oh my god!
What did I say about total loss, Matt? You just you let the insurance adjuster figure that out. But okay,
I get text messages if I've been in the shower for 4.5 minutes. So
but everything's low flow.
Kidding, baby.
But then I'm gonna
love you.
But I'm gonna tell you that my final words to this guy were, you know what? You just rotted and killed your grass. Because
especially this stage, this time of year for you guys, right? Like that's no bueno for a lot of reasons.
No, actually, I think the guy was pouring the water on it back in April. And you don't do that here because April is normally when we get a lot of rain too.
Yeah.
March and April is when it's raining a lot. And so in any case, I told him, sorry, man, you killed your grass.
But then you took a bite of your biscuit, right?
Yeah. And I had some coffee.
No, zero empathy. It was right back into biscuits and gravy time. Well, yep, exactly. Yep, pinky out.
Exactly.
Your 2 minutes of phone time are now up. I've got to go. Bye.
Yeah. But I literally told him that. It's like, you know what? Text me your address. I'll take a look at it when I get around to it. But otherwise, you killed your lawn. You killed your lawn. I mean, it's
even the grass corner is a green duck, right? So you got to go pronounce it dead. You got to put a toe tag on that lawn, Ray, and come back to it next year. So So then talk to me about. Oh, okay. I was going to say, wedding agents. Have you tried any wedding agents to like help balance out some of this like period between wet and dry? And what has been your, if you have, success, or what are your thoughts on those?
The only thing I've tried was this past summer. Tried hydrotain for the first time through the ortho hose and sprayed it. It definitely seemed to add more fungus. I feel like, but I'm not certain. Yeah. Which I heard that might happen, but I felt like,
never heard that.
Felt like. Is that sarcasm I hear or not? I don't
no,
know.
seriously, I've never
really.
I've never ever heard.
Well, it could. Well, it could just be me, and it may just be my mind because I heard that ahead of time. I heard, hey, I've seen comments and read things because clearly I tell you, I go to the school of YouTube University. And so when I saw that, I was like, okay, so I really need to, man, look at that hair, man. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, like that's some serious, you got the flow out. Like,
you know how jealous I am? Look at this damn lack of hair I got on my head. Killing it.
That was the old military cut. That's what got the wife, the military cut.
Yeah, I was gonna say that you need that whole gallon jug of hydrotain to beat the ladies off from looking at this video and comment. Like, come on, he's a married man, ladies. Lay off. Right?
I had to get away from the military cuts, but anyways, no, I put down hydrotain. That when was this? May, to test it out, and I think maybe it was a mind game. That it felt like it attracted more.
Man, look at that pause, real quick. Pause. Look at that.
What is going on in your neighbor's yard right
Does your neighbor hate grass, or are you just that good at your job? I'm just trying to figure this out.
They made me look better, but they actually moved this past year, and we've got some people from Pennsylvania that moved in, and when they moved in, I think they moved in, I want to say June. They're like, dude, your lawn looks pretty good. I said, oh, this is the worst it's looked all year, because it's when it started fading away. And I said, this is the worst it's looked all year. And he's like, oh, okay. And so now, it's the truth. Like, I ain't gonna lie, but
that's pretty fun. It's okay. I mean, it's average. No big deal.
Average. But the previous owners weren't lawn people, good. And they would get out there, and they didn't even have an actual self-propelled mower. It was a push mower, like the $35 Sam's Club special.
The old Murray.
And she would
20 inch
drop that sucker down to half an inch and it would cut off every 5 minutes. And so,
Ray, the old. It's like, it's the thing your nightmares are made out of, not your dreams. I was gonna say, but It's got the old side discharge that, it's at like a 10-degree angle and it shoots 30 feet out and away, blast all your bushes with clippings. Man, listen, Matt Martin, I've been on the business end of a Murray Walmart $90 special more than you can even fathom. And it's a damn good mower if you know how to use it, right? Like, those guys on YouTube that can like fillet a salmon with like a Swiss Army knife. Like, that's how good I got with the Murray 20-inch $90 special. I could make it look good, but
I'm still
those times
caught
have
up
come and
that he's
gone.
got neighbors from Pennsylvania next door. I don't know if I can.
Yankee, yeah. I
move.
knew there was going to be some Yankee comment of they were going to come down. Now that is like
I'd
a very
be on the
northern
back
thing
porch,
to do.
And they'd come outside, and I'd have to yell at them and be like, "Sir, you talk funny. Why are you here?" I probably shouldn't say that, right? But
so many Northerners have moved down here since COVID and all that and everything.
Really?
Oh my gosh, we got so many people in the neighborhood from New York, and they're from Pennsylvania, and then we add another house. A lot of the homes went for sale because in our area it was time. It was a seller's market. The question is, where do you go after that? So, but a lot of Northerners have moved down, and we had one couple that came from Florida, but yeah, a lot of Northerners, but they seem to be more yard people, younger couple, more yard people. So we'll see. We'll see if he catches the lawn care bug as well.
Oh, I'm sure you're going to plant that seed if you haven't already. Is there any warm season nearby? Yeah, I know. Look at that. Look at that.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah. That's exactly why I picked fescue.
Why? I was gonna say, why is your whole neighborhood fescue? Like, because you said it was a new build, so like 13 years ago, that was probably in vogue and like the hot thing to do down there. Has it flipped? Have you seen like newer subdivisions that have gone Bermuda, or where? What's that look like down there in your area?
It's a total mix in my area. It's a mix of both. But here in the subdivision, we were the second to last house at the end of a road. Well, in the past 5 years or so, they've extended the subdivision and they come in. And I actually talked to one of the builders not too long ago. I said, because here comes the sod truck and it's all Bermuda and they're just laying Bermuda in front of all these homes they're building. But what they're doing, and I don't know if you guys noticed and if it's this way across the nation, but I asked the guy, I said, so y'all are laying Bermuda today. I was like, so what's your plan for the rest of the yard? Oh, we just throw out a commercial. I was like, so you're putting the warm season Bermuda in the ditch and in the front yard, but in the back, you're just throwing a fescue mix. He's like, yeah, that's what we do. And I'm like,
they started doing that here too.
It's all about money.
They lay out the seed mats, and it's just it just trash comes up, absolute
but
garbage.
To me, it was an opportunity. I said, so ching ching popped up in my mind. Well, what if I'm a homeowner that don't want Bermuda, but I would like to have a cool season lawn, because every house down these areas up on the hill behind me are all Bermuda lawns, besides maybe one or two. And then after 6 months, it's just Weedville, because none of them maintain it. It's pretty, it's green. They move in, honey, look at our new starter home, and then it's Weedville. And it's like, to me, I was like, what an opportunity to approach these homes and say, hey, instead of having Weedville in your front and backyard, let's talk about how you can make this better with a little bit of knowledge that I know, how we can change it up. But yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. They're rolling out the side in the front yards, and I don't know how we got on this, but then they're just throwing cheap,
it's
50-cent mix in the back.
Very conversational. We told you that at the beginning. It's just how it's a flow. But yeah, you know what? There needs to be either a part of your channel going forward, or you need to make a new channel called Mason Dixon Turf, and you get to ride both sides. Like, you go front, right, and you're on one side, and you go in the back and the other side, and it's just showing how to take care of both. I think that'd be a really cool thing, because I bet you there's probably people that are like watching these and they're like, oh, this guy's all warm season. Now I got to go over and watch this guy's channel. He's all cool season. I got to figure out.
Right.
You could be the first guy in that niche of, oh my God, what did I get myself into with? I wanted the front sodded, and now I got a backyard that's just nothing but rocks, rocks, and some buttonweed or something.
Hey, having a split yard isn't all that bad. My front yard's fescue, my back is Bermuda. I enjoy it. If it's
I got a lot of wild.
I don't enjoy it because I have to cut it, and I hate cutting grass. And so
Yankee grass and the most southern gentleman I know. That's so sad, so sad.
I never had to deal with fescue really to any extent until I moved to this damn town, and it's the one thing I hold against Knoxville is fescue.
You don't even know about the secret GoFundMe I've got to change your front lawn out to centipede. That's almost at our goal. So we'll get that taken care of next year. Don't worry. Okay.
I'll do. I would do one worse. I would do one worse. Demi. Centipede is easy grass.
Not for Matt Martin. Not mentally for Matt Martin. He has a block. There's a block there. I think because I probably need to go to couples therapy and work out their issues, talk it out.
Okay, because
be open with each other.
No, actually, the nightmare grass would be zoysia.
Well, is there? Now tell me this, Steve.
I would take zoysia any day of the week.
It's all Bermuda in the warm season that you're seeing. Nobody's doing zoysia down there because it's starting to blow up.
You see that
grass?
Yeah, that has become. Yeah, because that has become actually, Ryan, the trendy thing is that somehow, some way, the architects got sold a pile of manure about how hardy and easy to maintain zoysia is.
Yeah,
they got fed the manure, and
hey,
I often the manure. Give me all the zoysia. I wish when I managed turf in Knoxville, the only grass I had to come across day in and day out was zoysia grass. I would have been a happy man.
You know what I would love to see, and maybe this is don't tell Mrs. Ferguson this, but I would love to see a YouTuber in your area, like in that. Yes, earmuffs. To have, because here's the running joke about the transition zone is that you can grow all the grasses, just none of them well, right? I would love to see somebody that has like a little plot of Bermuda, a little plot of zoysia, a little plot of centipede, a little plot of 12 fescue, Kentucky bluegrass, not huge, just 10 by 10s, 5 by 10, something like that, and just see, just mess around and find out what are the pros, the cons, all that kind of stuff. I think it'd be awesome content. So
now you need 100 acres to get a feel of it. You got it. You get it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you get to 100 acres of each of those grass types, you see some weird stuff that you wake up in the morning and you really questioning why you do this for a living. I'm telling you. I watched 60, 70 acres of centipede evaporate over a 2-week period one time. And you want to know what's dumb? Is that my first year, this is a true story. My first year managing centipede when we had the ice storm in Augusta, Georgia, I didn't know all the centipede was dead, right? And I'm out there selling lawn care, right? Because we just opened this branch in Augusta. I'm selling my soul. We're gonna fix this up. It's gonna be tough because I know we had an ice storm. I knew it was gonna be hard because we had an ice storm. But I'm telling you, you give me a little bit of time. We're gonna make good progress this year. Next year, it's gonna be the one to shine. We're not gonna have to sod all this. Everything's gonna be all right. Right? That's how just novice and excited and of an idiot I was, to be honest. And man, you feel so stupid when you go out there in May and all the other grass types are green, and you pull up to your yard and there's like one clump of Dallas grass in the center of the yard that's green, and the rest of it is just bare dirt. Like even the dead grass is gone at this point. You're looking at dirt, and you're like, well, I guess I'll put my spreader up. I'm not going to fertilize this. Like this isn't going to work.
No,
you're going to leave a note on the door, and it's like, hey, I appreciate you signing up for service this year, but there's nothing else I can do for you because literally all the grass is evaporated from your lawn. Sorry.
At least you weren't like some of your cohorts that probably still put the fert down and build them and said, well, I came here to do a job. Yeah.
When I was at True the guy, never mind.
Go ahead. No, all right. That's an after show story. You can share that in the after show and tell them. All right.
I'm just curious before you move on. When was you managing in Augusta? Because that's where I went to AIT. Fort Gordon, baby. Woo-hoo.
Yeah, that's right. Fort Gordon down in the southern end of Augusta. Mm-hmm. I guess that was 2011, 2011, 2012. Yeah, in that time frame.
Yeah, I was there. I think I was there for 5 months and lived down there for my AIT training, for the computer training. I was telling you, that's where they do all the computer technical IT type signal training is done at Fort Gordon there. So I was there 5 months, but that had to be like 2003 or 4. So yeah, I missed you by about 6-7 years. So it's all good.
Did you
No, I love
live
that area, dude.
near Fort Gordon, or did you
I
live
was on
outside in
base.
the? Oh, you were on base. Oh, okay.
Yeah, as soon as you get done with basic training, they ship you right over to, you get on a bus, you go to AIT, and it's basically, boot camp light. You have a little more freedom and privilege. And I would, I secretly got my, when we had a free weekend, I secretly rode home with the parents, drove my car down, parked it somewhere on base, and they never knew the whole 5 months I was there. So every time we got a pass, I would get in the car and run back to North Carolina and come up here and hang out. And they never they never knew. And so that's the one thing I always got away from. But yeah, I love Augusta, man. I went back there for some more training later on in my career, the military. But I love that area, especially the Masters too. And of course, I didn't get into golf till after AIT. So I was like, the Masters was right there, and Tiger was playing when I was there, and I didn't know who he was. So it was like, yeah, that's such a wonderful area. I love that area. Really nice.
I lived in Martinez and on the other side, closer to Evans area, and I like that area I lived in right there. It kind of, it was like a very small Memphis. I grew up in Memphis, and it just reminded me of like if you took where I was born in North Mississippi and fused it with Memphis, like, so you took Memphis and scaled it down to a real small town. That's how Augusta felt to me. The cops had cowboy hats, and I got pulled over for having out of state tags one time. So
nice.
We don't like your kind around here. All right, we're coming up on close to the end. We don't feel like we're rushing you, but what other questions do you have? I know we covered a lot, and certainly, you're definitely the kind of guest that I know we'll have back, maybe next spring, early summer, when things are heating up, and kind of refresh and touch base and make sure you're locked in and ready to go, because you've been super engaging and super fun. And like I said, we came upon your content. We wanted to learn more about you, and everything we've learned has been really cool as far as I'm concerned. So, what other questions do you have? What are thoughts, kind of coming off of this season, I guess, looking ahead to next, what else is there in your mind that you want to ask us?
Well, I know, going back to what Ray was saying earlier, talking about, be careful with the nitrogen in the summer. I like to be lighthearted. I was jokingly going to tell Ray, well, that's easy when you don't have much grass. You don't really have to worry about putting down nitrogen, because that's been my experience. Like, what am I doing wrong? So to hear Ray's, advice on that is great. That, like, hey, it's just so friggin' hot. Like, you're going to have loss. That makes me feel a little better, that it's not going to bug me as much, at least in my mind. That I think because here's the thing, looking at that soil test and the way y'all broke it down, the previous soil test going through a different company, it always had my potassium levels low, below optimum, and had me in this mindset of, why can't I get it in the optimum range? And so that's why I was going so crazy, with it. And then when I went up to the extension center, I don't know if it's the scale, of obviously how they're reading it with this, the Soil Savvy, the Yard Mastery test, the different ones that are out there on Amazon, the way they're looking at it versus an extension. I know I'm one that clearly don't do a lot, but I guess getting to my question is, how often, so the first thing I was going to say is, when I was just thinking that potassium was the answer before Ray kindly corrected me that that has nothing to do with it. That being the case, I couldn't get the potassium where I wanted it to. And I was hearing comments, like, well, hey man, it takes a while. You can throw down heavy, but it could take, years to get your potassium to even raise slightly. And I'm thinking, okay, and I'm not the type to go right on the internet and deep dive. Is that true or not? And is this person lying to me? But when I got it back from the extension, I'm like, okay, that seems high, but is it how they're reading it or whatnot? So what's your thoughts on that as far as different soil tests? Because I'll throw this out there. One of my content thoughts was to buy, use the extension here at my local area, get a Yard Master, get a Soil Savvy, get a whatever, take the same amount of dirt, do a soil test with all of them, and get the results and do a video on that. Now that I've told it to the public, somebody else can do it. You're welcome. But whatever, like, seriously, what does it come back and look like? Is there different readings for, is it software based? Is it, instrument based? And see, okay, here's 4 different soil tests with the same dirt, and examine, and that would be something I'd be interested in seeing somebody smarter than me do. But I thought that would be something to, that would be interesting. And so, what are your thoughts on that? Is that silly?
So no,
it was already done.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was already done.
Yeah, we had a guest.
We already did it.
The lawn stripes. We'll see if we can dig up that video and send you a link to it. But he was a guest on here a while back. He's from Cincinnati area, and I think he did the My Soil test, and I think Spectrum or Waypoint, one of the two. I think it was Waypoint, one of the bigger labs out there.
Yeah, I think he did a Waypoint test. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll send you the link, and here's what I would say, big picture. I think that would be interesting content, right? It would at least give, because I'm sure that question comes up a lot, whether people ask it directly or whether they're just asking it in their own mind of, I wonder which one's the right one. And here's what I would say is, like, there's no wrong one. First off, I think there are some that are better than others, though, right? So I'll let these guys talk a little bit too, but in my mind, like the My Soil and the Soil Savvy, right? I think they have a place in terms of, like, if you're just super easygoing and you're just looking for like that directional analysis that they call it, and trying to move up or down, I think it's okay. But the other thing is, like, the benchmarks, right, are not very transparent, and they're like, we don't know what the data is backing those up to be able to say that, hey, this is the critical level for potassium or phosphorus or whatever relative to those tests, right? And then there's some other variances that can occur in that testing method, at least as it's been explained, that might influence those analyses, right, that you get back. So that's number one. Number two, regardless of what lab you use, I think your sampling method is maybe the most critical thing, right? Because we can influence a sample to give us false or skewed readings just simply by the way that we take that sample. Meaning, like, if we take it too close in time, between our last application and our soil sample date, that can influence it incorrectly. Time of the year is not so important, just as long as you're doing it at the same time of the year. So soil depth, though, is important. So we really, really need to hit that 4-inch mark and be right on it, right? So taking off, the plant material that's there and whatever thatch organic layer is up on top, removing that and having a 4-inch core of soil. And that's going to give us the most accurate results that we can possibly get. One thing, like phosphorus in particular, is really, really stratified in the soil, meaning like we have a lot in the very first inch, and then it goes down significantly as you go lower and lower. The other reason that 4-inch depth is critical is that when the lab calculates those results, they're thinking that you're using a 4-inch depth. I'll let Ray and Matt explain that a little bit more here in a second. The last thing I'll say is, the big labs that we talk about here often, so your Spectrums, your Waypoints, A&L, Brookside, any of those, the results there that you're getting is a standardized and widely accepted, scientifically accepted method for sampling. And so the results are then, scientifically calibrated, right? That all of our calibration data in turf is based on that particular method of soil testing. In your area, there's also other methods that may need to be used. In your case, I don't think you would need to use those, but in certain areas of the country, you might need to. And that lab is more equipped, a lab like that is more equipped to make those judgments accurately and say, hey, actually, we need to use this other kind of test to give them the best result. So long story short, I think using a big lab that's giving you easily identifiable information that's science-backed is the way to go. There's lots of different ways to get there, but the most important thing is just being consistent at the time of year that you sample and the depth and the total, overall sampling methods that you use. So I've talked enough. Matt and Ray, what do you think?
Well, I was just going to say that as far as the research that exists right now in terms of quantifying things like, for instance, critical levels of nutrients that if you dip below this, your plant will fail. All of that is established under the test method called Malic 3, really, and so it's easiest to predict the response you're going to get from making a nutrient application if you are looking at what you have in the soil that's derived from a Malic 3 because that's how all the research was conducted, right? So, when you go to something that is not a Malic 3, the numbers you're getting back are not correlating with what the research says. So, you have to rely on that point to what their recommendation is. And even with the amount of research that exists, a lot of times what you get back from labs in terms of recommendations is a wild ass guess.
Mhm.
Maybe not a wild ass guess, but there's not a lot of consistency. I'll put it that way. It's not a wild guess.
Sure.
There's not a lot of consistency. So
And not a lot of
each
context either. Not a lot of context.
so like for instance, some labs, like if Penn State is looking at you, they're going to recommend you have somewhere between 200 and 250 parts per million of potassium. Here you have 100, and they're saying you are over in potassium, right? Or you're above
Mm.
optimum there.
Right.
So you kind of get a wide range of interpretations based on where you conduct this test, and that's why I think it's what's most important is what we have as an industry is an established set of critical minimums on what each plant nutrient needs to be at, and as long as you are in excess of that, then you don't have to worry about a nutrient issue causing you any problems, right? You can shift your thinking into other things, right? Is it stress? Is it disease? Is it insects? You could take
Mhm.
nutrient management off your mind for the overwhelming majority. And all of those numbers are derived through the Malic 3. And it's not to say that those same types of tests can't be replicated with the ion exchange resin, which you would see in Soil Savvy or My Soil, right? That
Mhm.
it could get there. And a lot of that could happen faster if there was transparency around how those figures are derived, but it's not. And I could get really technical into how they
Mhm.
they even measure the nutrients because it has to adsorb ADSORB into the ion exchange resin. That resin has to give up hydroxide ions. It has to give up hydrogen ions in order for it to yeah. I'm
You're
going
getting
off
deep.
the balls deep in there, but um anyway, case in point, our metrics that we have that are most research that are strong enough data sets to allow us to make decisions are derived from Malic 3. So in my opinion, it makes the most sense that if I'm from a diagnostic perspective, which is the most important tool that I have in my brain is diagnostics, is use what has already been established instead of trying to reinvent that wheel.
Absolutely. And my question has always been about the other soil tests is that you notice that when you send in your soil to your university extension service, you notice how they call for you to send that soil in relatively dry, no debris, just put it in a
Mhm.
bag, get it to the university, and they'll take care of the rest. Now, that is important because you know what happens to soil when it is sitting in that sample cup full of water? A lot of things happen to the various metals, the soil pH, and even the availability of simple things like, say, potassium and phosphorus, because water is one of the most reactive substances we have on planet Earth. And
Mhm.
therefore, you put soil in that cup with that water and you send it to My Soil or Soil Savvy. How long does it take for that sample to get to the lab? And the reason why I ask is because this is some inside baseball in that as part of my curriculum when I was a university student, studying agronomy and horticulture, I literally got to run a soil test, and exposure to the extraction solution was always a timed thing. So, in other words, if you're running a Malic 3 test, there's a time limit as to how long you let that soil sit with that extractant before you filter it off and then test for phosphorus and potassium. There's also a time limit as to how long you let that saturated paste, they call it, which is a 1-to-1 mix of soil to water, how long you let that sit before you take the pH reading on it. I don't see the time limit as to, when you send one of these other tests in, how long is the time limit regarding when that soil is exposed to the water and when it actually gets tested? How can you get a consistent result from a test procedure that is literally all over the place? How do we do that? Whereas you send it into the extension service, they're literally running the same tests that I got to see firsthand, and it's all done according to a stopwatch.
It's a big topic, and if we need to dive deeper into that, I think welcome to have an offline discussion, and not because we're going to trash anybody, but just more of like people are going to get bored here, and seriously, like we want to make sure that you feel comfortable and do it the right way and everything like that. But my biggest thing overall, and especially looking at your soil tests, is just focus on nitrogen management. Like if you're going to focus on one nutrient, it's the one that's not on your soil test. Focus on nitrogen and trying to dial that in and figure that piece of it out. And that will make a huge difference everywhere else, as far as your nutrient management plan. And especially with, what's to come in the fertilizer market, it's also going to be your least expensive choice of adding additional nutrients, macro and micro, here in 2022. So what else you got? Oh, go ahead, Ray. I'm sorry.
I think for you, your best bet is to follow the 4 R's of nitrogen management.
Oh yeah.
Right, Ryan?
Ray, lay it out for him. Lay it out for him.
Again, we're going to go back to, right rate, right time, right source,
and right place,
and in the right place. And it's going to become actually very economical, and to me, extremely simple. You see, I will confess to being 2 things: terminally lazy and cheap.
Says the guy who carries an 80-pound backpack sprayer on his back every day. Terminally lazy. I don't know about that. Yeah, and that's, I guess that's the whole point, right? Is like the whole manage what you or measure what you manage type thing, And I think that's probably where you'll graduate to in this next, 6 to 18 months of, hey, how can I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm seeing. How do I quantify that and make a better judgment of what I'm doing and if it's working and all that kind of stuff? So I can see you heading down that path for sure. So all good stuff for sure. So what else you got for us?
Well, I know we're running late.
No.
I'll ask one more.
You're good.
You're good.
It's very important because I told my neighbor, Mr. Kevin, has any other guest that's been with you guys ever thought that Ray plays the harmonica with that microphone?
It's been said.
I can't. It's been said a lot. I've never had a guest come on and say it though.
He's the man because it just looks like he breaks it down with the, and I was like, Ray's the harmonica man. It is so cool, man. Ray, don't ever change the microphone no matter what anybody tells
he is a Hawaiian John Popper for sure. He's also a lot skinnier than John Popper too. So
I was like, they got a band
he's John Popper after the bariatric surgery. He's that, he's because he's about 130 pounds soaking wet. So
yeah, I'm about 130 pounds, but I will I will wipe the floor with anybody.
What you don't know, and what we all don't know, is that Ray actually plays in a Prince cover band out there in Honolulu on a weekly basis. So,
yeah.
Yep.
And he
Do some
dances
blues
like Michael
covers here and
Jackson. It's the
there.
damnedest thing.
Yeah.
That is some real inside baseball right there. Moonwalking across some recently seeded fescue. And J Pink has the footage. J Pink has the footage.
Robert Palmer to get that posted.
You're actually you're actually
Ray,
a little
I
bit
gave
more
the
like,
I gave the footage to Matt. He has the footage. He's misplaced it.
Yeah, he might
it's probably
be,
right here on my desk somewhere.
You're built more like Steven Tyler. I would say more like a Steven Tyler, maybe. He's about the same height and weight as you, Ray.
Actually, no, Steven Tyler is taller. Steven Tyler is way taller. I mean, he's like,
we got to Google this.
6 foot something.
Tyler height.
He's
5'10", Ray.
He's
5'10", and you
5'10".
told us you were 5'7". Hey, listen, you're every bit of 5'9", 5'10" if you put your cowboy boots on. Don't show yourself, sir. All right.
I'm just larger than life.
You are. You're taller than Private Cowboy was in Full Metal Jacket. So just remember that. All right. With that, we do have some mailbag questions here. So
sure.
Let's hear the mailbag here. Do we have the You've Got Mail, or is that only for a burn return? I can't remember.
You've got mail.
You've got mail.
Yeah, there we go.
I thought Matt was going to read it.
Yeah, that was my fault. I'm over here reading it to myself instead of reading it out loud. So Thomas, who was on Burn and Return earlier this week, he's having he has a weed. He's having difficulty nuking. He's tried Fusilier 2, Speed Zone Red, Certainty, and Celsius. We left off wondering where he was located. He lives in Panama. Panama and has sent along a few more photos. He said he also has doveweed that he has identified. That almost looks like Asiatic dayflower.
Mm-hmm.
Or is that doveweed?
That is like,
it's not dense enough to be doveweed.
No, that looks something like Asiatic dayflower. And do you know what Asiatic dayflower hates?
Being cut low.
No, it hates me when I bring around the sulfentrazone and the metsulfuron methyl, and I may or may not be throwing that into a tank mix containing Speed Zone.
Ray, you got all the PPOs there.
Yeah, I was going to say sulfentrazone would be a good one here, because we actually used to get that in Georgia a lot.
You can get almost anything in in Panama,
especially if you're at an all-inclusive resort. I'm sure you can get just about anything.
Yeah, but then this looks to me like a sulfentrazone and MSM candidate, because it's one of those soft-leaved broadleaf weeds, and I know that Speed Zone alone is probably not enough to wipe it out. It's one of those zombie weeds, so it deserves full send. It deserves full send.
You get off the plane there, and they're like, "Hey, man, you want some illicit drugs?" No, actually, I just like some Dismiss. That's it. Just some Dismiss herbicide. I'll be good. Thanks.
And some metsulfuron methyl. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Mike is our second one, and he says, would it be possible to produce a wonderful, healthy lawn without performing soil tests and following their recommendations? Could one just simply follow 1/3 rule, deep once weekly watering, annual mechanical aeration, foliar nutrient feedings, and trusting in root cycling and exudates for soil compaction and reduction? Short answer to this is yes, you can produce a wonderfully healthy lawn without performing soil tests and follow their recommendations. You totally can. What you would run into is you increase your risk to the environment and to your wallet by taking that approach. That's the number one advantage, or the two advantages you pick up there, right? You may run into a situation where you could save a lot of money because you don't need to apply a lot of things that you think you may need to apply with your foliar nutrient feedings. The other thing too is that if you're already, real high in phosphorus and continuing to pound phosphorus for no reason other than you don't want to test the soil, then you could run into a situation that's not very kind to the environment, and in the face of everybody staring at our industry and what we do as a hobby or a career or as a passion, um, and being under further scrutiny than we've ever been before, with almost zero positive reports on what we do, is we evolve. We're all in this evolutionary period of the industry right now, and it's each and every one of our responsibilities to try and adopt these things, so that way no matter who points at us, we're only as weak as our weakest link, right? If they're pointing at me or they're pointing at you, and you have the data, you can kick their ass with the data and say, no, look, I chose to apply that because I need to, because I'm this low, and when I'm this low, it's not going to cause a problem. Or you can say, no, I don't apply that because I've got this test right here that shows me the data that I don't need to apply it. So yes, you can. Root exudates do nothing for soil compaction. By the way, root exudates only function with nutrient availability. So root cycling may be more of a compaction or organic matter buildup type of scenario there. I wouldn't even put it in the compaction realm of things. So yes, for the most part, is it recommended? Not necessarily.
Let me ask this question to Mr. Ferguson. Do you feel like by soil testing, you feel like that's an investment whereby you will save money in the short or long run by doing that?
Personally, yes, because it gives you some type of guidance into what needs to happen there. When you this is just again common sense Ferguson DIYer guy. Like to me,
Yeah.
it's like a map. Like this is what's literally out there on the back porch, bro. Like, okay, here's what you've got now. It's it's a snapshot of what's out there. So it guides you a little bit in where you need to go from there. And yeah, it's not going to be perfect, but at least it's almost like remember the old the NESs, the Game Genie? It's like a little cheat code, man. Like, why not take advantage of it?
Oh,
And just get a snapshot, Yeah.
Man, you got to get your Nintendo Power magazine out and get those codes, dog. All right.
I'm Game Genie old.
Yeah, I'm Game Genie old too. I'm right there. So I guess Ray, here's what I would say to this question is, shut up. You were playing Xbox One. You probably still have your Xbox One somewhere.
You think I've owned a gaming console? The guy who hasn't seen movies, you think I've got a gaming console?
I think at one point in your life you were probably in that space.
I got a Super Nintendo for Christmas one time, and my brother pawned it 2 months later.
I was going to say that was in 2002.
I had a customer give me an Xbox one time, and I've turned it on once. I have no idea.
Customer gave you an Xbox? As payment, like they bartered and traded.
I don't have $100.
No, he was like, "I'm about to dump this." Like, he knew I had
for
kids.
That broadleaf
like,
control.
Let your kids play it.
Here's my Xbox.
I was like, "You think I'm going to let my kids play video games?" I'm like, "Video games kill people. My children are not murderers." I'm just kidding. I did not say that.
That is bad. That was yeah. Okay, Ray. If it were me, you tell me if this is the wrong thought process. I would save the $40 to $60 that this person's going to spend in renting a mechanical aerator or paying somebody to come do it, and spend it on a soil test, right? And you're still going to have some money left over after you spend that $40 to $60. And for me, I go down there to
co-op,
the co-op, and don't even go to the co-op. I was going to say just go down and get yourself like a Subway sub or a 6-pack of your favorite beverage. Eat, drink, enjoy that extra money that you got in your pocket, and still enjoy your lawn too.
Absolutely, because for me, soil testing is just fundamental.
That's you got to get a McRib.
Yeah, soil testing is just fundamental because when somebody talks to me about compaction, or I always want to know what or why is this soil even excessively compacted? I want to know why. And for example, silly for me, is imagine me selling mechanical aerations now And my actual issue is high pH, high magnesium, and high sodium. And I sell annual aerations rather than addressing the actual problem. How much of a little idiot would I look like? You know, how much of a fool would I look like?
Don't call yourself a little idiot, Ray. Come on. We talked about your height. You're fine.
That's what got
your
me.
Normal
when he said
average height. Yeah, come on. Normal average height. You gotta improve the self-talk here. Let's do it.
Okay, we're gonna head on over to the show after the show. Those who know, you know. If you don't know, well, you don't know. But if you'd like to learn more about it, you have to become a member. You got to hit the join button, and then over there you'll find instructions on how to link up to the Discord. Then you can head to the show after the show. I warn you, it is adult talk, and if you are not into that sort of thing, it makes you uncomfortable. No problem, no harm, no foul. You don't have to. If you want to, you yearn for more content, then by all means, feel free to join us over there. Until Sunday. On Sunday will be our next recording of Burn and Return, and we're going to get to another mailbag. So, who was that? Jordan, we'll get to your mailbag on Sunday. Until then, everyone, have a fantastic evening.